Well, howdy there, folks. The name's Jackal. I'm the sheriff around these parts. The sheriff of fictional men. And we're gonna be playing Dead Man's Rest today. Let's get started. I tip my 10-gallon hat. My 2-gallon hat. That night started just like any other. Okay. First of all, I don't cuss here, so sorry for the censorship. It's a little lame. My butt was sitting on a rattler. Oh, on my way to some 2-bit town in the back end of nowhere. Glossary. A rattler, a single train carriage, or the entirety of a passenger train. Cool. Thought they were talking about a snake. Golders Rock, they called it, though I never heard of no gold there. Never heard of it at all until 2 days ago. I got a tip from one of my associates that a wanted criminal by the name of Wild Bill McCoy was hiding out there. See, I'm a bounty hunter by trade. I prefer living the drifter's life. Just me and my revolver. Easier that way. You ain't got nothing to lose but your life. Ain't been long since old McCoy and I had a run-in last time. This one's a bit personal. I've wanted to see McCoy dead for a long time. Everyone around here knows he's my target, and they ain't to interfere unless they want a bullet in their face. He got away once, and he ain't doing it twice. Oh, there it is! It's Dead Man's Rest. Something else was going on that night, though, while I was on that dusty train. See, there had been some sort of trouble there. The highfalutin mayor, you see, didn't have too many friends. Highfalutin, a self-important or pompous bearing. Seems someone was out to get him. The saloon was full, buckaroos playing cards, cheating cards, and drinking all night long. Everyone disappeared. Gosh. The mayor was at the bar. He'd been on the red eye since dusk, and at midnight he tipped his hat and left the saloon all roostered. Okay, red eye. Another term for whiskey. There is dispute whether the term refers to high or low quality whiskey. Roostered, one of the many words describing being intoxicated. Yeehaw, Jirachi! I tip my hat to you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining. Hey, Jed, have a good night. Tip your hat in spirit. I tip my hat back to you in spirit. Physically, spiritually. Only thing is, these new drawings I made don't. They block the chat a little bit. I'll keep it on this. This one seems to. You can see more here. Anyways, welcome. We in the saloon. Bad move for a man with enemies. Wait, what just happened? I don't even know. Oh. Okay. Guys watched him go, tottering around. Something bad was about to happen. Ruh-roh. Seems he made it home, though, just about the time I drifted into town. First place I went was the saloon, a dirty, crumbling old joint by the name of Dead Man's Rest. Title drop! full of guys. The mayor had only just left 5 minutes before I arrived. No man paid me attention except the barkeep, but that was fine with me. I was dragged out. Oh, exhausted, sickly, lethargic. Not literally dragged out. Okay. Got myself diggings there for just a few Lincoln skins and settled in. Oh my god, I feel like a real cowboy. Synonymous with a dwelling, place of rest, or lodgings. Lincoln skins. Cash. After the Civil War, the term came to mean fractional paper money. In 1914, President Abraham Lincoln's portrait was added to the $5 bill. Lincoln skins. I don't know about that term. Oh, look at those coveralls on that dude. Figured I'd rest for the night and set out at sunrise to settle the score with Wild Bill. Ain't no way I could have foresaw what would happen that night or the kind of men I was about to meet. Oh! Oh! Gallium Games and Argent Games. If y'all remember, Argent Games was the developer of Your Dry Delight, that game about the alcohol. Lee McCarthy. It's Lee McCarthy. It's Jed Matlock. It's Taza. Taza. It's Hollis Dalton. The Alton. It's John Cartwright. Oh my god, he got a mustache. The music's kind of quiet here. Oh, and not in the jail. Not in the prison. Not behind bars. But yeah, they made that Your Dry Delight, which is the game about prohibition that I really liked and streamed way back when, many moons ago. Alright, brother. Got shot. I got up the next morning thinking nothing was amiss. Phew! Packed up my plunder and headed down to the bar, intending to be out of town and over to Wild Bill's hideout by noon. Plunder, personal property, not necessarily acquired through conquest, excuse me. He's so animated. The barkeep stopped me as I was heading out the door. He was a tall man with long blonde hair and a kind-looking face. Hey, stranger. Okay, that's his voice. Hey, stranger, you hear about what happened last night? We are Lee McCarthy. Didn't hear nothing. Mayor Dalton's gone and been done. Found dead at the doornail first thing. Been done. Dead, killed. Been done in, comma, 4. Sheriff's rounding up a bunch of guys for questioning. Old Dalton didn't have a lot of friends. This wasn't good news. Ain't never good news when a shooting happens in the town you're in. Too much attention. And even worse, I was an outsider. For all they knew, I could have been hired to do it. I mean, we are a bounty hunter. The barkeep was looking at me like he thought I might have been hiding something. I kept his gaze. Sounds like some bad business is going on around here. You could call it that. Best watch your back though, stranger. It seems the streets ain't safe. Especially if they think you did it. Why are you looking at me like that? You think I did it? You looked at me for a long time. Nah, don't reckon you did. Good, you're clearly a discerning man. I say what I see, and what I see is a stranger who ain't got nothing to do with it. I got my own theories, though. Good to have theories. I ain't involved, though, and want to stay that way. Maybe I'll see you around. Sure. I left the saloon and stepped out into the street. Seemed like news spread fast in this little town. People were all over, whispering and pointing. I spat on the ground. Looked like I was gonna have to make a statement. Show these guys I weren't no killer. At least not outside of the law. Before I could do anything though, I heard another voice behind me. Voice. Oi, stranger. I only have one southern accent. I want a word with you. Oh my god, it's a showdown. I turned around to see the sheriff standing square and looking me in the eyes. He had a groomed mustache and slick hair, looking like he took good care of himself. What for? Acknowledge the corn, stranger. I think you know what's going on. Acknowledge the corn. Own up to a crime. In a legal case or horse theft, the defendant was accused of stealing horses and corn, but acknowledged only the crime of stealing corn. The defendant was still lynched. It ain't easy out here in the Wild West, I'll tell you that. Acknowledge the corn. Uh-oh. Ain't nothing going on as far as I'm concerned, except my job. And what's that? Yeah, take notes. Acknowledge the corn. I'm gonna add that to my vocabulary. Bringing criminals to justice, same as you. I took out the crumpled wanted poster and my bounty hunter's badge from my bag and showed him. Wild Bill McCoy ain't gonna turn himself over, so can I get on my way? He looked over my stuff, then back up at me. He didn't want to let me go easy, especially since folk were watching. He's gonna shoot me! I don't trust you, stranger. You're high on the list for who might have committed this crime, and ain't no way I'm letting you skip town. You try to leave, I'll put a bullet in your back. He gave me back my papers and badge, and I put them into my bag. Sounds mighty impressive, but I know you can't shoot no innocent man, Sheriff. You can't prove nothing on me, so your hands are tied. We glared at each other for a minute. He knew he couldn't keep me there. Thing is, the longer he was suspecting me, the less time he was spending looking for the real killer. The longer it took to find the real killer, the longer he'd suspect me. And for that whole time, the harder it'd be to find and kill Bill. I sighed. You want my help, Sheriff? I ain't bad at finding stuff out, and I want justice, same as you. Sheriff didn't look too pleased at that. Keep her nose out and let me do my job, greenhorn. A novice. You don't know nothing about these parts. I sized him up. No. But I know a lot about the kind of men I meet. Men are the same everywhere, you see, Sheriff. He narrowed his eyes. He knew what I was implying, what I was accusing him of. He spat at my fate. I'm handling this investigation, so don't get in my way. I can picture John Cartwright's voice in my head, but I cannot, never for the life of me, recreate that. And don't leave town. He turned away, spurs clicking, and sauntered off back to the station. Seemed I wasn't going anywhere, so I wheeled round and went back into the saloon. Bill would have to wait. Looked like I had a new job on my hands. The barkeep was washing up when I went back in. Gave me a hard look, but didn't say nothing. I sat down at a table and turned my badge over in my hands. I needed to figure a way out of this before it got ugly. At that point, I overheard two guys sitting one table over. Yeah, old Hollis. Heard he went to speak to Dalton the other day. Thought them two never spoke. Thought they hated each other. They did, but Hollis was completely soaked the other night and kept going on about family ties and all that bull. One of the many words describing the state of inebriation. Could be there's some fishy there. Shh, Shh, not so loud when you're accusing folk. Anyone in this rum hole could hear us. A cheap drinking place, originally referring specifically to locations specializing in rum. Oops. They shot me a glance and I looked down at my badge again. That sure was interesting. Some strange family member who could be involved in this? I thought perhaps that'd be a good place to start investigating. Oh, save. Let's see. Yeah, I gotta investigate, so I went to sniff out old Hollis. Couldn't leave it alone, or I'd be the one being hemped. Hemp, another term for death by suffocation, specifically via strangulation. Yeesh. I put my badge away and stood up, going over to the barkeep. Yes. I need to know a bit more about this town. What for? Ain't you just passing? Stuff got complicated. Yeah, you're telling me. What do you want to know? Who's old Hollis, and where can I find him? He laughed. You've been listening to Devin and the guys then? Hollis is a good place to start, I'd say. You're suspicious, sir. I'm suspecting you, Mr. Barkeep. He's the late mayor's brother. He owns a ranch and plot of 40 acres out the back of town. It's the most land anyone here's got, save Dalton. He and Dalton didn't speak for 11 years, till the other day. Nobody knew the BS between them, but nobody wanted to either. Hollis was in here the other night after seeing Dalton. Had a little too much who hit John and got a wobbling jaw. What are these words? A generic term for hard liquor. If you have a wobbling jaw, then you are a gossip and cannot keep a secret. Started talking about family ties, I hear? He leaned forward and nodded. Being up close to the barkeep, where I could see the color of his eyes, reminded me of something I'd rather forget. A feeling I hadn't had in a long time. It made me uncomfortable, and it was hard to concentrate on listening to him. I didn't get close to people for a reason. It meant you had something to lose. My name's Lee McCarthy, and I'm a lone wolf. Clearing my head, I tried hard to focus on what he was saying. Spouting off about lost time and how he was so glad to be a family again. See though, as happy as Hollis was, Dalton was depressed. Came in here last night drinking away his sorrows. Something there don't add up right. You think he might have had something to do with it? He moved back again and I suddenly felt lonely. I didn't realize how much it still affected me. I'd have to watch out where they at. Nah, well, I don't know really, but Hollis don't strike me as the type. I meet a lot of folk, and some of them are real mudsills. Someone in the lowest rung of society. Hollis, he ain't like that. I can think of someone else who might have done it though. Oh yeah? Yeah, I reckon. He motioned me closer and I tried to keep my face straight. Sheriff Cartwright. He and Dalton were having some kind of political disagreement over the rail. He's got the key to Dalton's house and all, given his position. Would have been easy for him. I thought about it. That sheriff did seem shifty. Could he have murdered the mayor in cold blood and tried to frame me? Before I jumped to any conclusions, I wanted to speak to Hollis. Perhaps he'd acknowledge the corn on the conversation he had with his brother. You gotta acknowledge the corn, bro. The barkeep returned to washing the dishes. What's your name, by the by? Jedediah Matlock, but just about everyone here calls me Jed. Pleasure, I'm Lee McCarthy. Most know me as Blackjack. Real? The bounty hunter? I was surprised they'd heard of me, all the way out here. in the butt end of nowhere. Yeah, here to pin down Wild Bill McCoy. Jed whistle. Jed. Yeah, I heard about that. Is Wild Bill near town then? I wasn't sure I wanted to tell him much more. Yo, he's Bill. I had to be getting on my way. Yeah, can't get there though, till this dang mess is figured out. I'm going to speak to Hollis, see if I can't find out what in the heck happened. Good luck. I tip my hat and lift. Tip. I'm a cowboy. It was nearly noon by the time I left the saloon, and a lot of people were out and about. Most ignored me, and some stared at me. None of them were half-wit enough to start a fight. Probably a good thing. Didn't want to end up in jail. That is a fancy house. I made my way to the back of town and saw Hollis's ranch in the distance. It was as grand as Jed said. Hollis must be a real big auger. Big auger, someone who owns a ranch, usually successful and well off. That's a weird word. My line of work didn't have me dealing with fancy folk much. Coming to him out of nowhere, a stranger in town, would he even tell me what the deal was? I sure hope so. Didn't want to be caught in this difficulty for too long. I made my way up to the ranch and knocked. It wasn't long before Hollis came and opened up. I was feeling all overish. Really wasn't used to these big fancy places. All overish, feeling uncomfortable or slightly distressed. When I saw Hollis, I was surprised. I'd expected him to be older, but by gum, he couldn't have been more than 35. Exclamation calling upon God. By gum, by Jove. He had short, neat hair with a few streaks of gray, and he was taller than me. Looking me over, he casually put out his cigarette. What accent? He's 35 apparently. Or, what, he doesn't look older than 35? He looks older to me. He looks like he's in his 40s or 50s. Who are you? Lee McCarthy, sir. It's a pleasure to meet ya. Tip my hat. Is it? I could smell alcohol on him. He'd been drinking. This was gonna be tricky. Yeah. Yeah. What do you want from me? A job? Ain't got nothing going at the moment, unless you're a grub liner. You agree, yeah. You look old, sir. I guess people's perception of age is different out in the Wild West. A grub liner, a wandering jobless cowboy, subsisting primarily on the good alms of the people. Like a hobo. No, sir, thank you, but I'm a bounty hunter. I took off my hat. Seems a man like this wanted some respect. I came to extend my deepest condolences about the loss of your brother. His face hardened and he looked me up and down. He didn't seem like someone who was grieving. Then again, it sounded like they hadn't been too close. What's it to you? Did you know him? Not personally. I'm new around here. Always sad, though, when this kind of trouble happens. I was towing the line, trying to keep him talking to me. It's that dang Cartwright's fault. He ain't never done his job proper, and he ain't never listened to us when we tell him there's a problem. Problem? A problem? May I ask what kind of problem? Native Americans. Uh-oh. They have a reserve a little way out west, and I ain't one to pick trouble. For a long time, they let us alone, and we them. Recently, though, I've been losing cattle. Can't be anyone but them. Ain't no coyotes around these parts. That's a strong assumption, sir. I reported it to Cartwright, and he don't give a dang to help. Says he's doing things according to Hoyle, and he won't do nothing illegal. According to Hoyle, which is according to the rules and regulations, the phrase refers to Edmund Hoyle, author of a book of rules and instructions for games, mostly of the card variety. Interesting. Oops. So I went to my brother asking if he'd sign an order to move him on. Hollis losing affinity points real fast. Sure is. Sure is, brother. I never got an answer, and next week he turns up dead. You freaking grumpy old man. I don't know if it was the natives or Cartwright himself, but something about this don't smell right. I couldn't believe it. Generally, I ain't had much to do with natives. If I left them alone, they didn't cause no trouble. Once or twice, they even helped me out, sharing food and stories while on the road. I didn't have no squabble with them and didn't want to start one. If this was true, though, and Cartwright was involved in it. Heck, what had I gotten myself into? Hollis had lit up a smoke while waiting on me to respond. Sounds like this ain't no simple matter. Sure as heck ain't, and I still ain't got anyone who'll help me with those natives. What do you want done about it? You know for sure they're the ones taking your cattle? Who else could it be? You know, Wild Bill McCoy and his crew have taken up in these parts. Could be they're trying to start something. Ain't no way a tribe of natives are trying to cause trouble for no reason, right? He eyed me thoughtfully. I suppose you're right. Ain't got no way of making sure, though. I can't go that far out, and for all I know, they'll kill me dead on sight. As they should. Suddenly, Hollis looked at me with a gleam in his eye, and I knew what he was about to say. You want to go? There's some greenbacks in it for you. $1 US bills. Heck yeah, yeehaw! Just talk to him and find out why in the heck they're taking my cattle. I ain't allowed to leave town. Oh, who says? Sheriff Cartwright. Hollis narrowed his eyes at me. So he's trying to frame me for killing my brother, is he? Hey, he had me. I'm just trying to find out the truth. And you should start with the natives. What about the sheriff? I'll deal with him. Tell him I got you on the job for some act. He can't argue with that. Sure, I'll talk to him for you. I don't want no trouble, though. Listen, I don't want no trouble. Neither do I. We're about 2 miles out west, just past the edge of the range. You can take one of my horses. I'll expect you back here tonight so you can tell me what in the hay's going on. If you ain't here, you ain't getting paid. Understood. I'll be back. Placing my hat back on, I tipped it and left. I didn't want to get mixed up in this, but what choice did I have? That Cartwright wasn't going to let me out of town without Hollis's protection. I had to take what I could and hope somewhere down the line I got a chance to find Bill. Saddling and mounting a bay, I headed off towards the reservation. Clippity cloppity, clippity cloppity. Cacti! It felt good to be in the saddle again. Since I go so far by train, it ain't easy keeping a horse. Has to be my favorite way to travel. It turned out the natives' territory was real close. Really was close. Hollis weren't lying, and it wasn't long before I came up on the border. I whistled loudly, hoping to indicate my presence peaceably. Hello, stranger. I'm the stranger. I'm the stranger. Oh my god, you're so close. Hello yourself. My horse reared in surprise. Some native had appeared right beside me. Do they have southern accents too? Everyone gets a southern accent. Apologies for startling you. Ain't no problem. I was on his turf, so I decided I was gonna start polite. Ain't no reason to start a fuss. To pick a fight. What are you doing here, cowboy? I came to ask your chief a question. Held my hands up, but didn't dismount. See, I'm unarmed. The native narrowed his eyes. He weren't fooled. As if you cowboys can't draw your pistols faster than I can blink. Just know that I'm not alone here. If you try to kill me, you'll be shot where you stand. Oh, he's smiling as he says this. By the way, we'll kill you if you try anything. I couldn't see nobody else, but I take his word for it. Try me, cowboy. With a pleasant little smile on his face. These people were good at hiding. Could be a dozen archers around me and I'd have no idea. Sure. Look, I'm not here to start anything. One of my acquaintances has told me he's had cattle going missing and he wants to know if it's you. He looked at the ground all overish. He was definitely hiding something. I noticed he was between hay and grass. Male halfway grown to adulthood. Can I speak to your chief? No, the chief doesn't meet with just anybody. Can you get the chief to come here then? No, I can answer your question. Who are you anyway, boy? Do you have the authority to deal with me? He stood tall and looked at me square. I'm Taza, son of the chief. I can speak for the tribe. Excellent. Then please, can you tell me if you are the ones who've been taking the cattle? He hesitated a moment. He really didn't want to acknowledge the corn. It is. Will you hear why? Ain't got no choice. If you really got the backup you say you got. An arrow flew past my face. My horse whinnied in. A little jittered myself, I gently calmed her, then looked back at the boy. Are you acknowledging this corn? I think he acknowledged the corn. Tell me what's going on here. Why are you breaking up years of peace? We didn't break it. You Americans are attacking us. Which? We don't know him. He isn't from town. Yo, it's a freaking Wild Bill McCoy. He leads a group of men attacking us and stealing our food. They had to take the cattle to survive. I felt sorry for the boy, but it weren't right for them to be stealing Hollis's cattle, regardless of the circumstances. They should have sent someone to talk to town. I gotta go back and tell the man who owns them cattle, and it's up to him how this all plays out. Gotta say though, it probably ain't gonna be good. His face twisted up with guilt and fear. Can you plead our case? Tell him we're only doing it to survive. I thought about it for a moment. These poor folks were trying to live their lives peaceably, but we're having their food taken away. Most likely by Wild Bill, just like the rest of us. A man can't stand by and let that kind of thing happen. Even to a native. Look here, I'm gonna tell you. The man who's attacking you, that's Wild Bill McCoy. This is a grand assumption. He's an outlaw, and I'm after him as much as you are. I'll do my best when I get back to town and find him and bring him to justice. Then you won't need to take no more cattle. I know where he is. I could take you to him right now. If you kill him or drive him away, you can recover the value of what we took from them, and we can return to where we were before all of this. I looked up at the sky. It'd be getting dark pretty soon, and here I was on Hollis's horse, promising I'd be back. If I went with them, ain't no way I was just getting back tonight. And I'd probably be branded a thief. Maybe even run out of town or thrown in jail if I tried to go back. Who's to say I had to go back, though, once I had Bill? All I had to do was kill him, then my job was done. I could leave this heckhole and go back where I came from. It felt wrong to take another man's horse and to choose the natives' problems over my own people. But wouldn't that be the easiest way? Sorry, this ain't my decision. I gotta go back to Hollis. I don't want to be wanted, you know? I'll come back for Wild Bill McCoy. The boy seemed disappointed, but I was on a job. I weren't gonna skip out and steal some other man's horse. It ain't right. Then this is where we part. I need to go back with something. Even if you can't give me all the cattle, I'm gonna have to ask you to give me something in exchange. Taza nodded slowly. I think he felt guilty about the whole thing. You do what you need to survive, but it don't mean it feels good. He looked around carefully before he took out a pouch and handed it to me. Inside was... by gum! Gold! Shh. It's all I can give you, but I hope it's enough. We've no use for it. If the town had come to talk to us before, we could have traded for the cattle. I will speak with the chief and try to stop them from taking any more cattle. You want me to tell them you want to trade? No. The chief is more angry than usual with Americans right now. Understandable. I hope you know we ain't all like that. He smiled. And I hope you know we don't all steal cattle. Holding out my hand, he gave it a firm shake. I liked this native. He knew what he was about. Good luck to you. See you on the road. He nodded, and I mounted my horse and set off back to Hollis. Luckily, no arrows came out of nowhere. It didn't take long to get back within sight of Hollis's ranch. He looked surprised to see me back. Well, I never thought I'd see you again, boy. I swear. Don't you know what that horse is worth? Sounds like he was trying to set me up or something. I dismounted and handed him the reins. He tied the horse's reins to a fence post, securing her tightly. I'm many things. A gambler, a drinker, a liar, a gunslinger, but I ain't no thief, and I'm proud of it. So, what'd you find out? He offered me a smoke, and I took a long drag. Nothing like the relaxation that came with a cigarette. Especially if, as I suspected from a whiff of his breath and a glance at the bottle behind him, Hollis had been on the whiskey. They were the ones taking your cattle. Effing natives, I knew it! I'll have Cartwright on them by dusk! Hold it. They're being harassed by Wild Bill, and they don't get no trade from town. They was gonna starve without him. I managed to get something out of them, though. I pulled out the pouch and tossed it to him. Your cows won't go missing no more. He narrowed his eyes, but then he looked in the bag, and they lit up with avarice. This is a lot more than those cows are worth. I know. You saying they ain't gonna take no more? No more. I told them they'd have the law on them if they did. And once Wild Bill is put down, they ain't gonna need him anyway. Hollis looked into the pouch again and then back across the desert. Suppose I ain't gonna sick the sheriff on him this time then. Thanks to you, stranger, for sorting the matter for me. I figure he may have forgotten, so I decided to help him out. It's McCarthy, sir. Lee McCarthy. Of course. This time, he held out his hand and I shook it. He had a good firm grip. Hollis Dalton. I suppose you'll be wanting your pay? Come on in. I followed him into the ranch proper. But you just had a bunch of gold in your hands. Just give me some gold. It was a nice big place inside. First thing I noticed was a ton of empty bottles all over, just like the one I'd seen on the porch. Looked like Hollis hadn't been dealing with the mayor's debt so well. Say, McCarthy. Mr. Dalton. He paused by the table, and for a moment, I thought he looked a little sad. You know, everyone thinks it was me that did it. I wouldn't never kill my own brother. But folk around here, they're all blaming me. I had 3 boys quit on me today. He looked at me squarely. I could tell he was under the influence, but I realized just how much he'd had us. He made a real effort not to sway where he stood. I wagered he'd probably pass out by evening by the looks. Do you think I did it, McCarthy? I just met you, sir. I remembered asking Jed the same question this morning, and he had the same look in his eyes as I did then. No, sir, I don't. Hollis exhaled. Then I've got one person in this goddamn town who ain't gonna shun me. That's gotta be a start. I felt for him. People been thinking that way about me my whole life. Some in this town probably still thought I killed Dalton too. I just got here, so... St. McCarthy? Yes, sir? You fancy working here with me? It'd be nice to have some extra help since I don't have them 3 boys helping around the yard no more. And you look like you got a strong hand. I know I can trust you. We can help each other figure out what happened to Earl. Then you'll be on your way out of town that much faster. What do you say? I gotta kill Bill McCoy. I'll politely decline, sir, if you don't mind. Have it your way, then. Be sure to come to me if you find anything. I will do, Mr. Dalton. You have a nice day. I didn't know what it was about him, but something was off. Maybe it was all the liquor. I didn't have much money, so I couldn't stay in the saloon much longer, but I weren't convinced working for Hollis would leave me much better off. I headed off the ranch and back to the saloon to figure out what I was going to do next. Later that day, I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling and contemplating what to do. It was clear I couldn't leave town without provoking Cartwright. I'd gone through a lot to get here and finally had my shot at Bill. And then at the last minute, like this blows up. I sighed and rolled over, facing the wall instead. It all felt so dang hopeless. Why was fate holding me back? I felt frustrated, so I spoke to the only one who could calm me down at a time like this. The only one who really ever understood. I'm sorry. Jimmy! I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'm still failing you. You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. Not Jimmy! I sighed again and turned back over to the ceiling. It felt like I could talk to him better that way. Not like Jimmy. I'm trying my best here, but it ain't easy. I swear I'm gonna get it done, no matter how long it takes or how far I go. I grit my teeth. It still hurt to think of him. You're still keeping me breathing, Ducky. Bill's gonna join you soon, and then it'll be my turn. I hope you kept a spot at the table for me. Suddenly I heard footsteps and forced myself to act like I weren't doing anything. McCarthy, you alright? Yeah, what's the word, Jed? Can I come in? You ain't shucked or nothing. To undress, as in to shuck corn. Unshucked may have been used by cowboys to mean to be undressed. Man, they love corn. They acknowledge the corn. I'm decent. Now I am. Jed opened the door and came in, sitting in a chair by the bed. He looked real pale and tired. Seems like it'd been a long day for him. Heard you talking to someone in here. You're not seeing things, are you? You're not crazy, are you? No use hiding it. You think worse of me for lying. Yeah, an old friend I ain't seen in a while. He caught my drift straight off. Bowing his head, he mumbled a prayer. I had a friend once too, a real good man by the name of Dean. The best ones are always taken too soon. Ain't that right? Is that why you're so keen on chasing Bill? You bet. That son of a gun needs to pay for what he did. I won't rest till there's a bullet in his skull. Jed regarded me with respect in his eyes. You're a good friend, aren't you? I pay back in kind. Jimmy was one of the best of us, and he deserves nothing less. Jed nodded, and we lapsed into silence for a while. I observed him during this time. He looked a bit all overish, though that could have just been the pallor. You got something to say, Jed? Come out and say it. Say it to my face, Jed. His eyes, normally so kind and sparkling, had dulled. You know, I could use some help around here if you want to work, McCarthy. I'd pay your way while you wait for the sheriff. You could ask folk a lot of questions. Saloon's a good place to be for gossip. I thought about it. I did like Jed. He'd struck me as a good and honest man. It seemed like he needed the help, too. Did I really want to spend my time bartending, though, when Bill was still out there? Would it be alright to take a rest here for a little while? Or am I doing Jimmy a disservice each day I let Bill breathe? Jed looked at me, waiting for my answer. I gotta kill Bill McCoy. Sorry, Jed, I've got something to do. I've gotta do it, and it can't wait. Jed seemed disappointed and worn out. Sorry, buddy, you're understaffed. Yeesh. It can't be easy running a saloon all alone, but dang, couldn't wait any more time in this town. Getting a job and waiting for a Cartwright? It was clear that I had to do what's right by Jimmy and by me. And that was chasing Bill, and only Bill. I'd worked outside the law before and I could do it again. Not like I was ever coming back to this town anyway. Alright. Do it your way, and Godspeed to you. Hope you find what you want out there. Thanks, Jed. I'm sorry, but it's something I can't just put on hold. He smiled at me. It's alright, I got it. He got up to leave, but paused at the door. Leave your key on the bar when you go. I don't know how early I'll be around in the morning. Sure, Jed. Thanks for everything. Jed nodded and left. I sighed, resuming staring at the ceiling, thinking about Jimmy. Just a little longer, Ducky. I'm gonna get him. For you. I'm gonna kill him up. I'm gonna shoot him up. Put a bullet in his skull. For you, Jimmy. I had a restless night, tossing and turning while thinking about Bill, Jimmy, and where I'd next be going. Go back to, what was his name? The Native American. Who knows where they are, right? By the time morning came around, I was still dragged out. Sleep hadn't been so restful. Getting ready to leave, I noticed a note lying on the floor of the room. It was scrawled all hasty, barely even legible, like the person that wrote it was scared. I flipped it open and read it. Keep your nose out of our town's business, outsider, unless you want to cut off. Okay, Sheriff, I know you want me out of here. I crumpled the note and shoved it into my pocket. I ain't never been scared of anyone before, and I ain't starting now. The font. Like how there's only one choice. I wonder what happened. They get their kid to write. Yeah, they're with their kid, holding their kid at gunpoint. Like, okay, write this down. Write this down. Well, I didn't usually bow to threats, but it looks like this son of a gun was going to get what he wanted. Truth be told, I wanted to be out of this town. Nothing good happened since I arrived. No use tempting fate by sticking around any longer. I packed what possessions I had and made for the door. Am I gonna get shot? Dropped my key on the bar, and as I left, I heard what sounded like someone wretched in the back. For a minute, I almost stopped, but it weren't none of my business, and I had somewhere to be. I closed the saloon door behind me and quickly headed out of town before the sheriff could get on my back. I didn't really know where I was going, but I got an instinct from telling Bill for so long. I followed my nose and headed for the river. This music's so happy. It was baking in the sun, out in the open desert with no hint of shade. There There was dead silence all around. Even the lizards and snakes had decided today was too hot for them. By the time I reached the river, it still hadn't cooled down none, and I was beginning to flag, what with having had barely any sleep. I stopped for a while and dunk my head in the water, cleaning the sweat out of my hair. While I was busy taking a long drink, I felt a presence behind me. In 2 seconds, I turned, revolver drawn and ready to fire. Why are you so close? It was that native, the one I'd met on Hollis's orders. Taza, I think it was. He was looking at me nervous, and I realized I still had my gun out. Slowly, I put it away, not taking my eyes off it. Smile. I liked the boy. He seemed smart. But just because he hadn't attacked me before didn't mean he didn't have didn't mean he didn't have reason to now. I didn't know what Hollis had done with my information, and he could have a grudge. I'm here to talk, American. Got your backup with you? And the name's Lee McCarthy. Don't wear it out. He grinned and gestured around us. It's just me this time. That was reassuring. Looks like you're not working for the townsfolk anymore. Nah, I decided to go my own way this time. My offer still stands, you know. If you want my help to find that man, you have it. I want to see an end to his gang and to my people's suffering. I thought about it. He was a decent lad, and he knew what he was about. It didn't occur to me not to trust him, which was rare. Did I need him, though? Or would it be easier to go at it alone like I always had? But he knows where McCoy is. The one option. Sure, I'll go with you. Taza grinned and held out his hand, which I shook firmly. Here I was, working with Native Americans. Who would have ever thought it? This is, what year is this? It's 19, what year is this? 80 something? I don't know. Get with the times. We made tracks back toward their settlement. I was nervous, knowing there's probably a dozen of them hiding in the desert, ready to shoot if I put a finger out of place. Taza was walking alongside me all quiet, and I felt a little self-conscious. He's gonna be my only ally in this reserve. I felt like I needed to say something, to smooth it over, you know? Before I could start speaking, though, I noticed him looking at me all curious. Are you a normal American? What do you mean? You seem pretty reasonable. You're the first white man I've met up close. So I can't say for sure if that's normal. But my father seems to think some real bad things about your people. I snorted. His father weren't wrong, really. Some of us for sure ain't worth trying to speak to. People like Wild Bill McCoy. For the most part, though, we're decent enough folk. Working hard, playing hard, living one day to the next. Taza seemed to consider that for a while. It was fascinating watching his face change. I'd never seen so many positive expressions from a native before. Normally they were indifferent or angry. It made a nice change to see one all thoughtful. Or maybe it was just Taza. He had a nice face. Lee McCarthy, your horizons are expanding right now. He was between hay and grass, and youth suited him. He was wearing one of their traditional get-ups that kept the sun off. I wouldn't be caught dead in it, but it suited him all right. Suddenly, he was speaking again, and I had to concentrate on what he was saying. Stop getting distracted, Lee. Come on. So what makes Wild Bill so different? He's an outlaw, you see. He done wrong. So he isn't someone you can reason with? I was finding his questions difficult to answer. I didn't mind, though. Rather, it felt good to explain it, to justify it out loud. Not all outlaws are like that, but Bill, he's one of the worst. He's a killer. He murders men in cold blood, and he has no remorse. Aren't you a bounty hunter? I kill men like Bill, men who deserve it. I ain't never killed a man who was innocent. Killing is killing. No matter what, revenge or justice, it's all the same. I shrugged. It must have been hard for him to understand. He don't know about American customs. Out west, if a man done wrong like Bill has, he dies. No questions asked. Men like Bill, they ain't even much like men anymore. What did Bill do? He killed my friend. The word catches in my throat. Jimmy was everything to me. Couldn't say that though, not to someone I barely knew. Jimmy! Your friend? I swallowed. My friend, Jimmy Kiefer. He was a good man. He never put a foot wrong in his life. Bill murdered him in cold blood. Taza bowed his head. May your friend rest in peace. He will. And that had what done it to him is pushing up daisies. Taza didn't say no more. It hurt to talk about Jimmy, much less with some native I didn't know, but after, I could breathe a little easier. Was like a weight on my chest I couldn't shift was suddenly gone. It was easier talking to Taza than any of the men in Golders Rock. He was so young and wanted to know everything. It was refreshing. Reminded me of when I was a youngster. We walked in silence for a while, and then Taza motioned to me to stop. We're coming up to the reserve now. Wait here. Someone has to announce us, or you'll be shot in 3 strides. He shouted in a lively voice using sounds I knew I'd never be able to produce. Soon enough, we heard another call just like it, coming from over yonder. He grinned at me. That's the signal. Let's go. He stepped forward, and it occurred to me that I'd probably just stepped where no white man was welcome. I got the shivers. Shiver me timbers. I walked between rows of small hogans as I vaguely recalled they were named in all manner of shapes and sizes. They were sort of pretty, making shelters for man without changing the look of the landscape so much. I didn't think Taza's tribesmen were going to be nearly as friendly as he was. Unfortunately, I was dead right. As soon as we entered the main area, I saw them. Dozens of natives, must have been, lined up in silence around a central space. This is just like in Warrior Cats, when Rusty goes into ThunderClan camp for the first time. The leader was obvious, Taza's old man, I suppose, and at the center of attention. He was glaring at me something fierce. Suddenly, I felt dead out of place. This was a hair in the butter if I ever seen one. A tricky or challenging situation may be likened to trying to pick a single hair out of a slippery block of butter. Father, I brought help from the town to deal with our outlaw problem. The old man said something back to him in a language I didn't know. It didn't sound good. Taza had a face like he'd been knocked galley west. Galley west describes a state of confusion or inaction. To be knocked into it is to enter such a state. I spoke English so our cowboy friend would understand. It's only fair since he's come here as a guest. Taza's father yelled at him, and it sure as heck weren't in English. Red-faced, Taza shouted back, abandoning English as well. I felt all overish, facing the sand and fingering my Stetson. I don't know what that is. Didn't know what to do with myself. Perhaps this hadn't been the best idea when all said and done. I felt about as welcome as a rattlesnake at a barn dance. I started eyeing up exits, thinking of places where I could cut and run. But it was too late for that. The chief seemed to have had enough of Taza kicking up a fuss. He hollered and 2 men suddenly stood behind me. I raised up my hands in surrender. I didn't want no trouble here. If anyone from Golders Rock knew I'd come onto Native American territory, invited or not, I'd be jailed at best. It was the sort of thing that could start wars. Taza turned to me apologetically. He's angry. Yeah, I kind of figured that one out. He's claiming you're working with the bandits and you'll force us off our lands. You'll be held for trial and I'm to be locked away in discipline until I learn not to trust white men. I couldn't say I expected much else. He's so naive. His teeth were grit as he forced the words out, and it was clear he weren't happy. At the end of it, though, he was just a boy, and I should have known better than to get mixed up in all this. He was pulled away roughly by one of his tribesmen, seething with rage, and I was left to the mercy of the chief. The old man turned to me with a gaze that was hard as ice. He gazed hatefully at me for a minute before handing out instructions. I went quietly as they trussed and tied me up, leaving me off the side. I didn't want to raise sand, not when this was already a hair-in-the-butter situation. You, white man. Yes, sir. You trespassed on our land. I had to deal with the whites in that town 15 years ago, and you broke it. You were to be left alone, protected. All of you will die. Look, sir, you've got this all wrong. I ain't with Bill, and I ain't from Goldner's Rock neither. I want to help you. The chief laughed, but there were no humor in it. You lie. I know white men. You cheat and steal for your own gain, from us, and even from other white folk. I can't trust your words. I've seen this many times over, and you're no different from the rest. After all, didn't you lie and sneak away to come here in the first place? You will be tried. I can't wait to see you dead. His eyes narrowed with hate. I took a deep breath. I understand there's a lot of Americans I'd like to see dead too. Wild Bill's one of them, but I ain't like him. Just do what you've done to Taza. He ain't at fault here. He was just trying to do what's best. I think I'll go with the first one. Nah. He's gonna be like, you're just like them because you want to see them dead. But then he's gonna, if I choose the second one, he'll be like, he doesn't know what's best. Wow, okay, I understand. There's a lot of Americans I'd like to see dead too. Wild Bill's one of them, but I ain't like him. The chief weren't having none of it. You're all the same, you Americans. Violent, dishonorable, greedy. I've lived long enough and seen enough to know your nature. You will be here until we can hold your trial. Neither you nor your government can argue otherwise. I have the law on my side. I knew there was no use barking at a knot, engaging in a useless or impossible task. Those men clearly weren't reasonable. I'd have to wait for another chance to talk to someone or figure a way out of this myself. The chief dismissed the onlookers and headed back to his dwelling. I get to stay in there, or I'm on the side. It was huge, much fancier than the others. I was left in the sand, arms tied up, uncomfortable as you like. Still, at least the sun was going down soon. It would have been much worse for me if it were the middle of the day. Likely I'd have been cooked in the sun before they could even get round to giving me a trial. Not a nice way to go. I leaned my head back against the rocks, pushing my hat forward for cover against the sun. I was dang thirsty, but I couldn't move. I hoped they'd send someone to bring me some soon. People kept walking past me, giving me odd looks. Didn't blame them. For some of the younger ones, it was probably the first time they'd seen a white man in the flesh. For the older ones, well, I think they just liked seeing me all trussed up like a cow for slaughter. I didn't know what kind of accord the chief had struck with the government, but it seemed like they'd been left entirely alone. Must have been some big money involved for them to get this kind of protection. Maybe I get to ask Taza about it later if I didn't die here. My chances weren't looking good on that front. Nobody spoke a word though I didn't know if that were on the chief's orders or just because they thought I was dangerous. I tried my best to get comfortable. My shoulders were aching like I hadn't felt in years. I was up creek without a paddle. In a predicament or tricky situation, maybe seen stand alone. As up the creek. With no way out right away, I settled in and watched the people around me. It was the first time I'd ever stepped foot inside of a Native American town after all. Most white folk never would. I watched them go about their business, weaving, herding, carrying crops. It really weren't all that different from living on a ranch. I sorta expected there'd be some shamans or magic stuff. Suppose that was all fantasy in the end. They were just regular hard-working folk living off the tough land, same as us. The heat of the sun was beginning to make me drowsy. With nothing else to do, I figured I'd take a short nap. Perhaps by the time I woke up, they'd have decided what to do with me. Or at least brought me some water. I let my hat fall over my eyes and put my head on my chest. Soon enough, I was sound asleep. Schnork, me, me, me. It was much later on when I was awoken. The sun was down, and by the looks of it, had been for some time. I started out of my sleep, and my hat fell flat on my lap. The Native American was standing in front of me. He had some mealy food on a tin plate and a cup to match. This for you. His English weren't nearly as good as Taza's or the chief's. Thank you kindly. May I be untied so I can eat it? He seemed to struggle with understanding me. Sighing, I tried to use more common words. My hands. I need to use my hands. I couldn't gesture with them, but I shook the ropes a little. He shook his head. No. Then how am I supposed to? I will feed you. Drink. He offered the tin cup, and I could see it was full of water. I didn't like being hand-fed like some baby, but I didn't really have much choice. Gratefully, I drank the water, which was awful warm, and dribbled down my shirt. I'd gone too long without water. The tribesman put down the cup, exchanging it for a spoon. Now eat. The meal he'd brought was some kind of thin stew. It wasn't much, but I knew I'd still be starving afterwards. I weren't complaining, though. I knew I was lucky to get anything, and what with the way the chief had been earlier. I sipped at the stew, more careful not to spill it. Water would dry, but stew was something else, and I didn't want no stains on my shirt. Even bounty hunters have some pride. Before long, I'd had all there was, and though I was still starving, at least I had a little in my belly. The tribesman didn't say nothing else, just picked up the reloading outfit and left. A term used by cowboys to refer to eating utensils, which may include cup, plates, cutlery, and spices. Reloading outfit, huh? I'm reloading right now. I sighed and leaned my head back. I knew I should be mad at this situation. Could have been that I was after Wild Bill right then, and it was because of Taza that I wasn't. Still, I couldn't bring myself to get mad at him. He was just trying to do what was best, and he honestly thought his people would help us. It was nice to see a youngster with such a fresh head on him. I was angry at my predicament, to be sure, but most of that was directed at myself, for knowing that this was the likely outcome, yet following Taza anyway. I mean, he could have just told us where to go, right? And at the chief, who weren't to be reasoned with, even though I was speaking sense. Nonsense. I closed my eyes, hoping to drift off to sleep again. It was uncomfortable without my hat being on my head. Though I had to admit it was somewhat more comfortable leaning back without the brim getting in the way. It was starting to get a little cold now. Desert days were hot as you like, but the nights, they got a little chilly from time to time. I shivered, my outfit not chosen to keep the heat in. It seemed they weren't coming for me tonight. I briefly wondered if the chief would make good on his threat and try to have me killed. The man didn't deserve to be hung for what I'd done, and he knew it. Still, he could probably do it if he tried. Especially with what special protection he had. He must have contacts real high up. Is it going to be a trial with the town? It took me a while to doze off, shivering from the cold and wondering if I was a dead man walking. I'm a dead man and I'm resting, just like this game. Dead man's rest. Lee. Psst. I opened my eyes slowly and saw it was still night. The stars were out, shining beautiful in the sky. Gosh darn, was it cold though. Lee. I knew that voice. It was all high and hushed up and whispered, but I recognized it. Taza? I'm behind you. I'm trying to undo these ropes. Give me a minute. I tried to turn, straining to see where he was. Now he mentioned it, I could feel a little movement. I tried moving my arms, and it felt somewhat looser. What are you doing, boy? They'll kill you for letting me go. I'm leaving too. You're what? I'm leaving here, Lee. They ain't got any intention of holding a fair trial. I could hear him through the wall. They're gonna shoot you dead in the morning. Oh my god. It's all my fault you're here. I thought they'd be reasonable, that they'd listen, but we need help so bad. His voice was starting to shake, and I felt bad for him. Sounded like he was blaming the whole thing on himself. I mean, did he just say that? He acknowledged the corn. Finally, I felt the ties drop off, and I got to my feet, stretching and dusting down my pants. I turned around and saw Taza staring at the ropes as if he couldn't believe what he'd just done. Crouching down, I put a hand on his shoulder. Save. Did I know what was? Thanks for saving me. That took real guts. He looked up at me with a new determination. This is the right thing to do. I can't let an innocent man die, especially when I was the one what brought you here. It's not right. And I know my father won't see reason when he finds you gone. I can't be here when that happens. He bowed his head again and asked me something all quiet. Can I come with you? I know I won't have the support of my tribe like I promised, but I can still be useful to you. I don't know what to believe right now, but out of all this, you're the only one I want to trust. We just met, bro. Well, I couldn't rightly say no. True, he was young, but he was smart, and if he was anything like the rest of his people, he was a mean archer to boot. We'd started this mess together, so it only seemed right I let him come along. Not to mention, I liked his company. Felt a lot less lonely out in the desert with someone by your side. Of course, you're coming with me. Where else you gonna go? Besides, as much as you think this is your fault for bringing me here, well, you wouldn't be in trouble with your father if I hadn't agreed to come now, would you? I suppose that's true. I clapped him on the shoulder again and stood up. Where to then? You got horses anywhere? Lord knows we ain't making it out of the reservation before dawn on foot. Having something practical to do seemed to do the trick. He stood beside me and pointed out west. They're kept over there. I saddled you up before I untied you, but we have to hurry. Their keepers will be up soon. Bro, we're stealing horses now too, Taza? I had to admit I was impressed. This boy kept surprising me. Good job. Would have taken a long time to tack him up. We headed out of the main part of the settlement and towards the horses Taza had prepared. Sure enough there, they were all tacked up and ready for us. Careful not to startle him, I mounted the leftmost. She snorted but didn't buck me. Taza jumped up on the other one, smooth as butter, and before anyone could stop us, we headed out of here. There. I didn't hear nothing from any homes as we made our way off the reserve. Seemed like Lady Luck was on our side this time. We headed for the shortest direct route off the reservation. The Native Americans almost surely couldn't follow us off their own land unless they wanted to be tried themselves. By the time we reached the edge of the reservation, it was almost dawn. Taza continued forward without flinching. I followed him a second later and we pulled up, looking at each other. The sun was about to break the horizon. That went pretty smooth. Thanks again, Taza. I did the right thing. You don't need to thank me. I'm sorry my ignorance put you there in the first place. Hey now, I told you before. I was the one that agreed to go with you. It's no odds. Not a problem. It's no odds. I'm out home free, and now you're the one with the problems. Taza looked back over his shoulder at the land he'd left behind. He had a wistful gaze, but it was more than that. He was fired up. The boy had something to prove. He'll not return until Wild Bill's dead. If I can prove to my father that working with you was the right decision and a success, he'll have no argument. He hates Americans unreasonably, and I have to make him see that that's not the way. We gotta make allies where we can, because we can only build a proper future with our people working together. So, let's go and find Bill, shall we? He looked back over at me with a sad smile. I admired him more than I could say in that moment. For someone so young, he sure had some mighty ideas. It was a nice picture he painted too. Could be if there was more of us like him, things wouldn't have gotten so bad between our people. He's a good boy. Right now though, I thought that going straight for Bill might not be the best plan with just the two of us. I rubbed my neck and gestured towards town. Hold your horses there, tenderfoot. Did we read the description? A newcomer, especially at mines and ranches. First thing we ought to do is head to Golders Rock. Why? I won't be allowed near it. Could be I ain't neither. If I've been named a long rider for leaving town, then we got nowhere to go. An outlaw who spends most of their time on the road evading capture. But we should at least check it out. I don't know about you, but I could use a few hours rest before I gun for Bill. If I ain't been declared an outlaw yet, then you'll be safe with me. If I have, well, then we're on our own. But I don't want to pass up the chance to sleep in a real bed. Isn't this super risky? You're sure they won't hurt me? I don't intend on being seen by anyone until I know what's what. If I'm a persona non grata, then we'll race on out of there with no need to talk to nobody. And if I ain't, then nobody will lay a finger on you as long as I say so. He weren't convinced, I could tell. For all that he had this grand idea of our people working together, he was still terrified of us. He didn't say nothing though, just nodding his head. Alright then, to Golders Rock it is. I wheeled my horse about and set off towards town. I could hear Taza following a few steps behind me. It was a selfish detour, but I'll be danged if I went up against Bill with no food in my stomach and barely any sleep. Going in like that was asking to die. It took a couple hours hard riding before we arrived at the outskirts. I didn't want to attract unnecessary attention, so I insisted we dismount and leave the horses to graze a distance away, continuing the last leg on foot. Water break. Slowly, we crept towards town. It was the middle of the day when the sun was at its peak, so most folks were indoors cooling off. I took off my hat and wiped the sweat off my brow. We made our way around the edge of town and up behind Jed's saloon. Hidden behind one of the wooden columns, I could see most of the main square. Taza was looking around all fascinated. I suppose it was probably the first time he'd ever been this far into town. I searched for places where posters might be, but didn't see no new wanted ones up besides Bill's. Suddenly, I heard a voice I recognized come out of nowhere. McCarthy? Well, so much for not being seen. Poop on a stick. We'd been seen. Jed came round the side of the saloon, looking at us all quizzical. What in blazes are you doing around here? And with a native? Look, Jed, I'm sorry for hiding round the back, but I don't know my situation with the law, and it ain't smart to come round the front. Clever. Sheriff declared you an outlaw this morning. Dang it. So there ain't nowhere in town we can go? Jed looked uncomfortable as his eyes shifted over Taza. What are you doing, McCarthy? Dang it. Darn, we're an outlaw. Gosh darn it. Oh man. Come back to town. We'll get it straightened out with Cartwright. This sneaking around ain't the way to do things, and people are gonna get the wrong impression. Especially with the Native American around. I know you didn't do nothing wrong, but them out there don't. And they're looking for someone to blame. I can't. You know I've got to go after Bill, Jed. This Native American, Taza, is helping me catch him. Apparently he's causing him some trouble. Jed locked eyes with Taza, but didn't say nothing. The boy had been quiet the whole time. If there's nowhere in town for us, we'll go. I just wanted to make sure, was all. Well, I won't tell the sheriff I saw you. Best of luck, Blackjack. I swept my hat off to him. Thanks, Jed. Farewell. He disappeared back into the saloon's main doors. I sighed and let Taza on the trail back out of town. Well, poop. I'm sorry I led us here for no reason. Who was that? Jed? He's the barkeep at the saloon. I met him first night I was here in town, when the mayor got shot. Mayor Dalton was shot? Yeah, you didn't hear? He shook his head. We don't hear much news from town. Is that why you're running for the law? They think you did it? Kind of. It's a little more complicated than that. The sheriff told me not to leave town until he'd solved the case, but I wanted to go after Bill, so I left anyways. As far as he's concerned, I disobeyed a direct order, and now I'm guilty regardless. I acknowledge the corn. Taza looked away from me. It seems I ought to apologize again. You're an outlaw with my people, and now with yours as well. All because of me. I swear this kid was funny in the head, blaming himself for everything over and over. I never said sorry so much in my life as he had since this morning. It ain't nothing to do with you, Taza. I made my own choices. What got me into this mess. Don't you be worrying about it. Save. Besides, this town felt bad from the start. I'd rather be on the desert. This town felt bad from the start anyways. Alright. I'll take you at your word. We made it back to our horses in short order. So, where to now? I sighed. I was tired and so was he, and we'd got nothing but the two of us and our horses. This weren't the way I'd hoped this would go, but we were out of options. Ain't nowhere left to go but Bill's. Let's get that SOB. I don't think this is a good idea. Grabbing the reins, I kicked my horse, and we were off across the desert. It was difficult to have much of a conversation, what with the wind around our ears and the clatter of horses' hooves. I admired Taza as he rode, though. He looked a horseman to the manner born, a natural fit. I'd never seen anyone seem as easy in the saddle. I weren't no slouch by any means, but he had this kind of grace about him. Quickly, I noticed he'd been staring and hunkered down over my own reins. We had a job to do, and I couldn't forget that, else Jimmy could never get the peace he deserved. Jimmy! All for Jimmy! We made tracks up the river towards where Bill's encampment was. Taza had told me on the way into town that he'd come across him yesterday, and he led us back there. We left our horses back down by the river, walking the rest of the way. Wouldn't do to be so conspicuous. It was nearly dusk by the time we got to the top of the ridge and looked down into the camp. Bill was nowhere to be seen. This was strange, and for a minute I thought we'd been too slow. Then I saw the candles burning in the old farmhouse, and motioned to Taza, pointed out the signs of life, and nodded in understanding. He nodded in understanding. He shuffled back down off the ridge to a safer spot. You want to go in now? All told, the boy looked dead on his feet, and I was sure I wasn't looking too good neither. He shook his head, much to my relief. There's no sense in rushing in like a pair of reckless bulls. We should take some time to rest and plan a little. Couldn't agree with you more. We set up camp, and Taza pulled out some fixins from a pocket in his clothes. Food. I stole this from the settlement. I thought we might need it. I hadn't had nothing to eat since that thin stew the night before. I was a starving man. I praised Taza's good sense and chowed down. It weren't much, just some bread and a couple strips of dried meat, but by gum, if it weren't the best meal I ever had. After, we settled down under a tree and watched the stars come out one by one. We'd agreed to catch a few hours of sleep before going in around dawn. I was tired. I was beyond tired, but for some reason, I was struggling to sleep. It felt strange that this might finally be the end of it all. Chasing Bill had been my whole life, ever since he took Jimmy from me. Where would I go after this? What would I do? I had no one but myself and no idea about anything. Without Jimmy, life had never seemed worth it anyway. Jimmy! I caught sight of Taza looking up at the moon. He wasn't sleeping neither. I walked over to him and sat down. He didn't seem to mind the intrusion. A penny for your thoughts? What? His boyish face was looking at me all confused. I realized he didn't understand me. It's an expression. It means, what's on your mind? You homesick? He sighed, and suddenly that boyish face seemed much older. No, I was actually thinking it's sort of strange that I'm not. I've never really been off the reserve before, so by rights I should miss it. But I don't. I don't miss home, nor any of the people there. Does that make me a bad person? Of course it doesn't. Some people aren't made that way. If you were born independent, then you're gonna feel that way your whole life, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. Take it from me, I ain't been back to my hometown in 15 years. Taza looked surprised. To be frank, you don't look old enough to have left home 15 years ago. I barked a laugh. I was 13. Young and full of ideas and thought I didn't need anyone. Ran off from my dad's farm where it was just the two of us. He told me if I walked out that gate, I shouldn't bother coming back. So I didn't. Do you think he misses you? I think he's dead. Could be dead for all I know. He and I were never on the best of terms. I ain't telling you this so you'll feel sorry for me, mind. When I left, I knew I'd never see him again. But what I'm trying to say is that the pull for adventure was too much. In spite of everything, I had to go. It ain't wrong to follow what you want, Taza. We only got one life. YOLO. The boy seemed to consider my words, looking back up at the moon again. His face, barely lit up by the moonlight, was sad. I felt like I wanted to comfort him, to take it all away. Suddenly it occurred to me that I hadn't felt like that about nobody except Jimmy before. I knew on some level I thought Taza was, well, nice to look at. That happened often. I was a man after all, and I had not... What? But I didn't consider I might think any more of it than that. Sure, he was a nice, straight-talking voice, and his face was pretty and smooth, and he had a curiosity about him that was contagious. Then all of a sudden, it hit me like a gold rush freight train. I was falling for him. Oh no, this weren't good. He was still between hay and grass, and I was pushing 30. If that weren't wrong enough, he was a Native American. By all rights, I shouldn't have been talking to him, let alone getting sweet on him. To be fond of, keen on, or in love with some object of affection. And I was almost certain that he was a normal, red-blooded young boy. Normal. Not inclined towards men, especially old lechers like me. I tried to push the thoughts out of my mind. We'd kill Bill, and then I could leave, go somewhere else, and that'd be it. The end of the line. I took a deep breath to calm myself, and then noticed he was talking. I tried my best to focus on what he was saying. Different. I don't see the world the way they do. They always they always told me to work hard for the tribe, and home was where I belonged. We were lucky to live on our land and retain our culture, because so many of us are forced into assimilation schools. That sounds terrible. American government-sanctioned institutions designed to replace Native American traditions and culture with those of the dominant American society. Children from tribes are removed from their families and placed in these schools, distancing them from the influence of their families. That is sad. I always felt ungrateful, because I always dreamed that there could be more out there. What's the point of life if you're living it one day? If you're living at one place, one day to the next, without a goal or a dream? I need to see what's out there and do what's right by me. I just hope they'll understand that. I'm gonna be honest with you, kid. They won't. They probably won't. People like that, who are caught up in their own agenda, their own ways, they don't see the world like we do. They see it as a threat, somewhat dangerous, what ought not to be encouraged. My father always did say the outside world was unsafe. It's why I've never left before. I believed him. It's true. If you don't know how to look after yourself, you'll get on the wrong side of someone and be in a ditch by sunrise. But you've got a sharp wit and a quick bow. You'll do all right. He smiled at me. And an American partner. I grinned back. Yeah, that too. And then we died the next morning. Just then, I heard a commotion down at the camp. Taza must have heard it too, because suddenly he was quiet as a church mouse. Both our eyes turned towards it, and we crouched low under the tree so as not to catch attention. I couldn't hear what was being said, but it sounded like someone was having a spat. Probably a bit too much Who Hit John. It was still the middle of the night, but I could hear the voices leaving camp. They were coming this way. I suppose they didn't want to wake up the others. Either that or they were about to have a shootout. Either way, we didn't want to be near them. We hustled backwards as quick as we dared, moving through the bushes until there was nowhere further to go without being in the open. I crouched next to Taza in the bush, our own breathing sounding too loud to our ears. Then 2 men suddenly became visible over the top of the ridge. They was yelling at the top of their drunken voices about some or another. I didn't care to listen, instead whispering to Taza under my breath. I think you can get a good shot from there? He hesitated. I haven't killed a man before, Lee. Internally, I winced. This weren't going as smooth as I thought. I'd do it, see, but I only got a revolver. My shots would be heard for half a mile, and it'd send Bill running up here, guns blazing. If you can shoot him, it'll get him out of the way before we go to get Bill, and when he has no backup, it'll make it a lot easier. He saw the wisdom in what I was saying. I knew that. Still, though, his hands were trembling like a leaf in the wind as he went for his bow, and I knew he weren't going to be able to hit the broadside of a barn door. I put my hand over his to stop him. Don't. I'll handle it. I can do it. I know, but you shouldn't have to. Don't worry, I can handle it. But the noise. There's other ways to subdue a man than shooting him. They're just a bit more messy. With that, I took some rope from my pack and stepped out from the bush and crept up to where the 2 drunk louts were talking. They were far too involved in their own fight to notice what I was doing. When I got near enough, I coiled the rope into a lasso. Quick as a cat, I launched it over the nearest man, catching him straight round the legs. I pulled hard, and he hit his head hard on the ground. He was out for the count. His buddy thought he tripped up, too soaked to see the rope. That trick weren't going to work a second time, though. When he bent down to see his friend, I launched myself out of hiding and landed on top of him. Before he could scream, one hand was over his mouth and the other round his throat. It was a dirty way to fight, but I didn't have no choice. Besides, I was sure these thugs had done worse to people in the past. We were just assuming a bunch of things. Soon enough, his bulging eyes closed as he passed out. I didn't see the need to kill him. Bill was the only one I came for, and as soon as he was dead, those lick spittles would run like the wind. I turned back to Taza to check if he was alright. He was watching wide-eyed from the bush. A 3rd man was creeping up behind him, about to catch him unawares. My mind froze. I couldn't warn him now. It was too late. The guy was going to be on him in a flash. And at this range, arrows would be useless. Taza didn't strike me as the type to be any good at hand-to-hand combat, especially not with his small frame. I made a snap decision and drew my gun. The man noticed me and moved to leap into the bush. Seeing me draw, Taza turned his head and saw the danger right behind him. Oh, I pulled the trigger! The shot went off, the man collapsed, and the night air rang with the noise. Well, that was that. Bill would be up here in a matter of minutes. Taza was shaking all over, still crouched next to the dead man. Hey, it's alright. Look, they don't know you're here. Get away and hide somewhere, and then if this goes south, you can come back with more men and finish the job. No use in us both dying. Wow, we really aren't trying. But I shook my head. He was terrified. He'd never killed a man before, and I wasn't going to put him through that kind of situation when I didn't have to. Truth be told, I didn't care much if I died, so long as Bill went with me. I was sure I could manage that at least. Get out of here. I'm trying to do what's right by you. He looked down at his trembling fingers and seemed to understand. His eyes were all teary. He nodded once, then made his way back up the ridge, not a minute too soon. I heard footsteps coming up from the camp, and just a moment later, I saw Wild Bill McCoy. He was swaggering like he was some sort of big shot, just like I remembered. The man hadn't aged a day. Seems life on the run hadn't worn him down one bit. I had my gun at the ready, locked with my finger on the trigger. He saw me and stopped dead. Then he started laughing. Playing in the middle of the desert, gun trained on his chest, laughing like he didn't have a care. I curled my finger tighter. Well, if it ain't old Blackjack. You followed me out this far to the butt end of nowhere, did you? You know I'd never give up tailing you, Bill, and now here I finally caught you. That you did. Remind me again, what was your grudge? So many people got him. I started to lose track. I gripped my teeth angrily. I knew he remembered, but he wanted me to say it. He wanted me to remind him of what he'd done, so he could puff out his chest and laugh again. Bill was just that kind of man. The name slipped between my teeth almost before I knew I'd said it out loud. Jimmy Kiefer. Bill laughed again and my chest started to hurt. I should get this over with. My finger was frozen, though. Like I needed to hear Bill say something. I needed him to know why he was dying, who he was dying for. Yeah, of course. I remember your little Miss Nancy. Miss Nancy, a man with feminine characteristics, presumed to be a homosexual. You're such a hypocrite, you know that, McCarthy? What in tarnation you talking about? You call me a killer, but you're a bounty hunter. You go around killing men all over. I'll kill men who broke the law, Bill. Like you. But you broke the law too, didn't ya? You and your lover, Jimmy. See, some men have a moral code. What's different from others? I done wrong by you, but you're hunting me because of it. But I seen wrong being done, and I had to stop it. Man and man, we're both acting on our own morals here, and I done what was right by me and by God. My God, don't make me laugh, Bill. I know you ain't never read a Bible, or you'd be far more scared to die. Bill shrugged, easy as anything. Face it, Blackjack. Just 'cause you're working with the law, that don't make you any more right than me. I could feel myself getting angrier with every second. He was trying to justify killing Jimmy? Worst part was, I could see the twisted logic in what he was saying. It was all true. The law I'd broken wasn't really enforced, but that don't mean it didn't exist. And for a Christian, it was wrong by all accounts. But no matter what, Jimmy didn't deserve to die for it. I steadied my hand. Well, lucky for me, the law's on my side this time. I'm gonna put a bullet through your head and get paid to do it. So you got any last words, Bill? His eyes narrowed. Yeah. Figured as you ought to know the truth. Your precious Jimmy weren't the man you thought he was. Uh-oh! The reason I killed him is 'cause he cornered me. Tried to touch me. I didn't want to become like you, so I had to defend myself. He wouldn't take no for an answer. You're a goddamn liar, Bill McCoy. All of a sudden, I was shaking with anger, and my gun became unsteady again. I couldn't believe him. I wouldn't. Jimmy loved me, and he was a good man. He wouldn't never do that. Well, I guess you'll never know, will you? Then men tell no tales after all. I was furious, but Bill had shaken me to my core. My memories of Jimmy were already beginning to get fuzzy. How dare you say that about Jimmy? It couldn't have happened. In my confusion, my gun dropped the slightest. Bill took advantage straight away and drew his gun on me. I barely had time to notice he was taken in before there was a whizzing noise. Suddenly, he had an arrow in his chest. He looked down, confused, then collapsed where he stood. It was done. it was over. And Taza was the one what done it. I looked over my shoulder, still shaking in rage, and saw him standing up on the ridge, tears falling free down his face. He was frozen, his bow drawn and hands still where he'd let go of the arrow. My heart went out to him. It weren't easy killing a man for the first time, but if it hadn't been for him, I'd have been dead meat. Bill's gambit almost paid off for him. Where's his other men? With a heavy sigh, I holstered my gun and walked over to Taza, clapping him on the shoulder. Thanks, Taza. He looked at me and seemed to see me for the first time. His eyes cleared slightly, and the tears still on his cheeks were beginning to dry. He was gonna kill you. Yeah, you really did a good thing there. Thanks, Taza. You know, I wouldn't be standing here otherwise. I know it ain't easy for you, but I'm grateful to still be breathing. I shot him. I didn't even think about it. He's dead because of me. He's dead, but otherwise you'd be the dead one. Yeah. Wild Bill wasn't a good man, Taza. He'd have killed both of us in a blink of an eye and got on with his day. You did good. I smiled, trying to encourage him, to relax him. It was real tough facing up to yourself the first time you killed a man. I remembered my sleepless nights. He seemed a little less on edge, at least, after talking to me. That was the one I owed you, Lee, from earlier. Yeah, we're even now. Thanks again. I gestured over at Bill's body. No, that's worth a lot of money. You was the one that got him in the end, so it's all yours. That thing's worth a lot of money. Pointing at his dead body. I've not got any use for it. Please, take it and use the money. He was your old enemy, and you spent years chasing him. I wouldn't feel right. Well, if you say so. But it's rightfully yours, so if you ever need anything that money can get, you come and find me, alright? I'll take care of it. I will. Alright then. Let's say we go down to that camp, you keep watch while I clean out anyone what's left, and then we'll try to get some sleep. I thought we were gonna let them live, like... That sounds like a really good idea. I hefted Bill's body over my shoulder. It was dang heavy, and not a nice job, but I wasn't gonna leave it out for them thugs we caught earlier to find. They take it and the bounty with it. We walked back up to where we'd left our horses, and were surprised to see they were still there. That was a stroke of good luck. I gladly unloaded Bill onto the back of mine. Taza grabbed the rest of our stuff, and we headed down, leading the horses into the old farm. Seemed like nobody else was there. Either we'd taken them all out up top, which didn't seem likely, or they'd run away. They'd run when they'd not seen Bill come back. Definitely more likely. I left Bill's body hidden behind the hay bales in the old barn. It wouldn't be disturbed there, and the horses could make noise if someone came in. We left him grazing and went into the old farmhouse. Empty whiskey bottles were everywhere. It was pretty sparse, but what wasn't broken or rusted had been stolen. Still, there was a mattress, and that was better than what we'd had up to now. Taza dropped our bags, and I turned the mattress over, checking for bugs. Nope, clean. Must have been what the bandits were sleeping on. There's nobody else here. Looks like the rest of them must have fled. Don't blame them. Men like that ain't got no real loyalty, so they follow whoever's strongest. Without Bill, they ain't got nobody. So they'll run until they find some other boss willing to take them on. I sat on the edge of the mattress and removed my hat, sighing. With only one bed between us, oh. Not the one bed. This probably needed to be said. I knew Taza had heard everything Bill had come out with, and he'd probably had some concerns. Look, Taza, about what you heard earlier. He sat down next to me, looking serious. About what? What Bill said about me and Jimmy? Oh, was it true? He was direct. That surprised me. For a minute, I was a little flustered, not being used to talking so openly. Well, yeah. We were considerably more than just friends. Oh, why didn't you say something before? I never knew how important he was to you. Didn't you trust me? We just met, bro. He looked almost hurt. If what he said before was a surprise, this blew me away. What was going on here? To be acting so casual. It ain't about not trusting you, Taza, but about what you think of me. You see, in white society, it's difficult to explain, you see. Cowboys out on the range with no women for months on end. A man's got needs, you know? But in town, back home, where there's no shortage of women, well, that ain't so right. People don't like it, not just 'cause it's against the law. Taza looked confused. I felt all overish, trying to describe such a thing to someone straight out. This should be stuff you just knew. Why? Why what? With starvation and disease and death all around, it just seems like a real strange thing for people to worry about. It's to do with the Bible, you see. The word of God is that the only right way is a man and a woman. But sometimes your heart just don't match up with what you're supposed to do. And that's the way for me. But those who don't understand, they think that everyone else should follow the Bible. I can't imagine that. What's it like in your tribe then? Have you got people like me? Yes. Well, not quite in the same way, I suppose. Gender isn't such a defining thing in our tribe. Rather than being fixed on whether you are born male or female, we also think about what's inside. There are some women in our tribe who are more masculine than the men, and some men who prefer to do the woman's work. All of them are respected just the same, if not more. I never knew white society was so strict. I couldn't believe my ears. This was all so relaxed. I thought about some of the women I knew who could take on any man in the saloon in an arm wrestle. And about the first boy I'd ever been with, a young slip of a thing with a high voice who wanted nothing more than to sing his whole life. Maybe our society was too strict. It wasn't something I'd ever thought to question. I just took my lot and lived with it. If there were cultures out there like Taza's, though, then maybe there was somewhere for people like me. Taza was still looking at me curiously. I cleared my throat. Well, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't, well, you heard what Bill said, and there's only one bed here. I didn't want you thinking I was gonna do anything to you. I ain't like that. I didn't think anything like that. Good. Sometimes people's opinions change and they don't want to get too near once they know who you are. As if you're somehow a different person today than you were yesterday? Don't worry, Lee. I know who you are. I'm not worried at all. I was feeling more awkward than I had in my life. I could feel my ears heating up. Found myself desperately hoping I wasn't all red-faced. This conversation had been something else. Somehow, Taza hadn't a concern and simply flopped back onto the mattress. After a beat, I laid back beside him, staring at the moldy ceiling. I know what you are. Taza been new. Taza don't care though. You're a good boy. Before long, he broke the silence, his voice inquisitive. You didn't believe what Bill said, did you? About what? About Jimmy. My chest got tight again. Every dang time. I saw you freeze and I thought maybe for a second there you believed him. Nah, Jimmy wouldn't do nothing like that. He was a good man and he loved me for all he was worth. It was Bill trying to get a rise out of me, that's all. I'm glad. You shouldn't let those memories, what are dear to you, be ruined by a man like Bill. You know who Jimmy was, so keep him close to your heart. After all, you've avenged him now, and you did what you set out to do. I hadn't even thought about that. In the rush of things, that happened since Bill died. It was true. Jimmy's spirit was at rest. So why didn't anything feel different? I thought I'd get some inner peace or something. Anything to let me know I'd done some good by him. But all I felt was empty. I had no idea where to go or what to do with myself now. Ever since Jimmy died, my whole life had been about Bill. Without him in the world, I didn't have nothing to hold on to, and I still couldn't let Jimmy go. Taza spoke up again, and I could hear the tension in his voice. He was struggling with something. Lee? Yeah? I don't know how to feel. About what? I killed a man today. Says that with the little smiley. I killed a man today. You sure did, buddy. Good job. I remember the first time I shot a man dead. It ain't something you ever forget. I'd been out on the town, and that night, the saloon had some entertainer in. And he'd been playing the piano for everyone. It wasn't from around those parts. He was playing for his keep, you see. Now, this man was a musician of the first water, highest greater quality, originally used to describe precious stones. Boy, could he play. Some of the sweetest music you ever heard. The kind that makes you wish you could play yourself just to hear it again. A few of the card sharps in the bar weren't as happy with the entertainment, though. They said he was making too much noise and they couldn't concentrate. The rest of us never took him seriously. On that night, there was one of them, a well-known four-flusher by the name of Steve Burgeon, who had a bit too much to drink. Four-flusher, a trickster. The term originates from poker, where a player will bluff about having a flush, but their hand only contains 4 of the 5 required cards. He slipped and an ace fell out of his sleeve and onto the piano. Now, the piano player saw it, but Steve whipped it back off the keys before he could say anything. Some of the other players at the table saw it too, though, and they started questioning him. Mr. Piano Man, what'd you see? Was Stevie Boy cheating again? What's going on here? He didn't want to get involved, but all of a sudden, he was. He tried to leave and quit responsibly, but they wouldn't let him. It got ugly. Steve was threatening him not to say nothing, and the others were threatening him to tell him what it was. I feel bad for the piano player to this day, but I was between hay and grass. Ain't no way I could have gone in the middle of that. Anyway, sooner or later, it dies down and the players carry on their game. Later on that night, I'm staggering out of the outhouse when I see Steve Burgeon and the piano player in the courtyard. It looked like they were having a conversation the piano guy didn't want to be having. Drunk as I am, and still feeling bad for not stepping up earlier, I walk over to him. I overhear their raised voices, that it was an ace Steve had been hiding in his sleeve, and the piano player wanted to out him. He didn't think it was fair that man got away cheating at cards. Before I know it, there's a gunshot, and the poor man is dead on the floor. People in the bar are screaming and running. Steve turns to leave the spot and sees me there. He knew I'd heard it all. He raises his gun, but before he can use it, I'm quicker. I shoot him in the stomach. Bam! He collapses in pain. There's blood everywhere, and suddenly everyone in the bar is circling around me, asking what happened. Some of them saw Steve raise his gun, so they know I ain't at fault. They got a stretcher and carry Steve off, but he dies before even making it out the door. I was too shaken to even say a word. Took 3 stiff drinks before I could explain anything. All I could think about was that Steve wouldn't be in the saloon no more. And that piano player and the music he'd been playing for us just a few hours before. Now, nobody'd ever hear that music again. Okay, that's sad. That depresses me. Taza was hanging on to my every word. He looked mighty troubled at the end of the story. I was amazed at how quickly I got to know each and every one of his expressions. I had a sudden urge to reach out and touch his face, but as quickly as I felt it, I squashed it. These dang feelings, why did it have to be now, and why did it have to be him? That's such a sad story. What a waste of life and talent. I feel guilty, Lee. I feel horrible for taking a man's life, no matter whose it was. Don't worry, I get it. The way I felt after that first time, I never wanted to kill anyone again. I suppose as I got older, though, I got a new perspective on things. Sometimes, as is the case with Wild Bill, ain't no other way to deal with a man. Taza nodded slowly. Save. Look, killing someone in some circumstance is the right thing to do. If you hadn't stepped up out there, I'd be a dead man. You saved my life. Think about that instead. I'm serious. I messed up, and you were brave, and you saved me. Just for a moment, I thought I saw Taza smile. We didn't talk much longer after that, both too exhausted from everything that had happened. I fell asleep thinking about the haunting piano music from so many years ago. When I woke, Taza wasn't there. Seemed he'd woken before me and slipped away. I felt like I could sleep for another week, but it still felt better than earlier. I looked at the sky outside. I could see the sun was just past its peak. I'd slept all morning. I hefted myself off the mattress and went to find Taza. Didn't have to go far. He was right there. He was sitting alone on a stump outside, staring out at the river. I was a little concerned that he might still be dwelling on what happened earlier. But then he turned around. But then he turned when he heard me coming and flashed at me a smile. You're up. I didn't want to wake you. Did you sleep? Enough. Not well. I don't really feel safe here. Yeah, I know what you mean. I sat down on the stump and he shifted over to make room for me. Yes. For a little while, we sat in silence. I wasn't really sure what to say. It felt like we were at the end of something, some kind of crossroads neither of us wanted to face up to. Eventually, though, we were going to have to. We couldn't stay at this old farmhouse forever. I turned to him and decided to bite the bullet. So what now? I don't really know. Where will you go? Tell you the truth, I ain't got no idea. Everything in my life's been about chasing Bill. Maybe I'll head back east a little, or maybe I'll keep on bounty hunting. Taza was looking all uncomfortable. Eventually, he turned to me and held out a piece of paper. His hand was trembling. I wasn't sure whether to show you this. But Lee, please don't leave yet. I need your help. He handed me the crumpled note. Curious, I opened it and read. It was written pretty neat, in a nice script like whoever wrote it was educated. Bill, need to commence the plan. While everything's up in the air, we have to focus on the Native Americans. Get your man to contact me, and I'll arrange to get the sheriff out of the way when you attack. Make it believable. It's gotta look like they came to us. Don't mess this up, or you aren't going to see a cent of your pay. H for Hollis? H for Hollis, bro? H for Hollis. What in the dang heck? H. That could only have been Hollis. From what I heard, nobody else in town called Dalton Earl. Hollis was responsible for this all along? Never trusted that guy, shaking my head, yeah, What a dang shame, bro. And it looked like he had bigger plans to frame it on Taza's people or some such. Certainly, what he had planned didn't look good. I turned silently to look back at Taza, and his face was noticeably paler. Do you know who wrote it? Yeah, a guy named Hollis who owns the ranch out west, the old mayor's younger brother. He's the one who sent me to find you that first day about the cattle. Seems he's always had a problem with your tribe because your land borders his. He mentioned he was upset about the cattle, but Dalton and the sheriff didn't listen. Seems he decided to take matters into his own hands after all. Then he was responsible for the dead mayor? Seems so. It doesn't say his name specifically, but I'd say this note is pretty incriminating evidence. What an idiot for signing off with his first initial. He's responsible for Bill's presence out here too, by the looks, or at least he's capitalizing on it. I'm afraid for them. I know they were wrong to treat you so poorly. And I know that I haven't ever seen eye to eye with them. But I can't let the townsfolk go through this. I have to warn them. Now, don't be hasty. Bill's dead. We don't even know if Hollis can follow up on this plan. He'll find other thugs to do it, or do it himself. The man's killed his own brother to get this plan underway. One dead thug won't stop them. Not to mention, those men we knocked out earlier are gone. We thought they ran for the hills, but what if they went to Hollis? His voice was getting high and squeaky and his breath quicker. I could tell he was panicking big time. Look, Taza, you're a smart boy. Think about this, all logically. We don't even know for 100% that Hollis was behind the mayor's death. All we know for sure is that he was involved with Bill and was trying to get your people incriminated in some act. If you go running off to warn the chief that the town's coming to hunt him, what do you think's gonna happen? He'd run straight to the town with our best warriors. Ain't no sense starting something. He'd be playing right into Hollis's hands. Hollis don't need fake wrongdoings if the chief comes marching in. Let me go back to town. I can go to the sheriff, show him this note, and get Hollis brought in. Oh, so the sheriff is in on it, bro. Your people don't need to know nothing about this. You don't think they deserve to know? They might be about to be attacked, Lee. Taza stood up, and his hands were balled into fists, and his breath was coming hard and fast. He wasn't thinking clearly, that much was obvious. Blasted if I knew how to snap him out of it, though. It weren't so long ago that I was young and headstrong like that, too. Besides, you're a wanted criminal now, too. The sheriff won't hear a word of what you've got to say. Not if I give him my bail money, which will be covered by Bill's bounty when I hand him over. Then I'm a free man, and the sheriff's got to lend an ear. People can just buy their way out of prison? What kind of society do you people live in? Hey, ain't no need to get that way. It's working to our advantage here. Besides, it won't work if they prove in anything serious. Then you face the hangman. But since all I done was leave town, they can't rightfully keep me forever, and I can pay bail, so that's that. Listen, just stop getting angry for a minute and listen. You'd be making it worse by going back to your tribe right now. Starting something you don't need to start and creating worse tension between your tribe and the Americans, that ain't what you want. He was shaking his head before I even finished speaking. His mind was made up. I knew that face. I had had that face too often myself in the past. Nothing I say right now, no matter how much sense it made, was going to stop it. I'm sorry, Lee. I was going to ask for your help, but there's nothing you can do. Don't go back to town, Lee. My father might be right about all this. We were so nearly blindsided. How many would have died? Could still die. And for what? Land? Money? Greed? American society is corrupt and violent, and it's gonna spread to us if we don't do something about it. So we'll get violent first. I knew he was only saying this because he was upset. Didn't mean it didn't hurt, though, hearing him saying all that stuff about Americans when he'd been so open-minded before. It's true, our society weren't the best, but it did produce good men. At least, I like to think so. This ain't you talking, Taza. This is the fear. Just earlier, you were telling me how much you wanted to get out and explore, see everything. What's changed? He looked at me sadly. I'll never forget that expression as long as I live. I realized the true nature of the white man, Lee. That's not to say you're all the same, one man to another. You're nothing like Bill. But you can't deny that your society is driven by money, by greed. No matter how many good men come out of it, one day, it's all gonna crumble. I've got to make sure that my people aren't caught up in that. You know, my father told me a secret once. 15 years ago, he met someone called Sean Brady. Attorney General Sean Brady? My eyes were popping out of my head. Everyone knew Brady. He'd been quickly making his way up the political ladders for years. The boy shrugged, obviously not knowing the significance of the question. Could be. My father said he used to be a sheriff here in Golders Rock. Someone who got too big for his boots. He hired a few natives to kill one of the higher-ups so he could move into federal government. That's how my tribe got our special protection. He made a deal that we wouldn't be touched in exchange for the murder and a promise to keep our mouths shut. Preying on our weakness, making our desperate people murderers, and all for power and money. Didn't you just break your promise by telling me? Taza shrugged. All the energy seemed to have gone out of his body in a rush. He turned and began walking over to the barn where we'd left the horses. I followed him, trying to keep up with his talking and process what he'd just said. A conspiracy involving the Attorney General, hired Native Americans, and a hushed-up assassination. It made sense considering the level of disdain the chief had for Americans and the immunity the tribe had. But dang if it wasn't a sobering thought that a man like Sean Brady was still out there. If you tell, then I'll know you really are just like the rest of them. That'll be a lesson well learned. But even after everything, I don't think I have to worry about that. Not from you. I'm sorry, Lee, to leave you like this, but I have to go back. You can go now. You're free to be anywhere you like. Take Bill and take the bounty. I don't want nothing. Just get far away from Golders Rock. Don't get hurt. I could say the same to you, Taza. He mounted the horse, but I pulled at the reins and stopped him one last time, shaking thoughts of Brady from my head. Taza needed me right now. Save. Why does anyone have to be hurt, Taza? Please think about this more. What you're doing won't help. What you're doing won't help nobody. His eyes narrowed. You're the one who isn't thinking, Lee. This is important to me. I can't sit back and do nothing while my people die. I'd have thought you'd understand. Take my advice or don't. But regardless, I'm telling them what I know. I have to. I sighed and let go of his horse. There weren't going to be no convincing him. Shaking my head. For a moment, he stopped, uneasy, realizing that this was really it. He was leaving me and going back. I hoped he'd change his mind. But then his eyes hardened, and he kicked his horse and cantered away. I watched the dust cloud until it faded away completely. Why'd my heart hurt this bad? Dang. I sat there a while, not sure how I felt or what to do. What Taza had said was true. I could just up and leave, take Bill's bounty to some other town and reap the rewards. But what then? I'd be all alone. And I'd always wondered what could have happened. What did happen, and whether he was alright. Stupid falling for a Native American. I knew there was only one thing I could do. McCarthy, you're a dang fool, and you're gonna regret this when you fall on your butt. I folded Hollis's note and put it in my pocket, then grabbed my bag and tied Bill carefully to the other horse. If I was quick, I could make it back to town before the tribe moved. Pink lemonade. It was a fast trip down the river. The afternoon sun cooled by the breeze off the water. Luckily, I didn't run into nobody, Native American, Bill's gang, or otherwise. I couldn't do with delays today. Finally, just as the sun was about to set, I made it to the outskirts of town and dismounted carefully. First thing I had to do was find Sheriff Cartwright. It seemed Lady Luck was with me, because who did I see in the square? It was none other than the man himself doing the rounds. Oi, Sheriff. Sheriff? Cartwright looked up at my shout, and his eyes widened. He started over to me. You're a dang fool coming back here, McCarthy. You've been declared an outlaw since you skipped town while under orders to go nowhere. He arrived and stopped in front of me, his hand on his pistol, eyes narrowed. I weren't surprised he didn't trust me. I broke his rules after all. I'm going to take you to jail, and you better not argue. Fine by me, Sheriff. You'll see behind me, though, that I got Wild Bill McCoy strapped to my horse. So I'd like to take my bounty in cash, then use that to pay whatever you'll be setting my bail to. He stared at me. Then he leaned round to check the body before he returned to staring. Why'd you come back here, McCarthy? There ain't no way someone like you just gives up his bounty money like that when he could go to the next town over and get off scot-free. What's the catch here? What are you trying to pull on me? The sheriff was a smart man. I lowered my voice, aware we were in public. Look, Sheriff, can we talk about this in private? I found some evidence in Bill's camp that I think you ought to see. He eyed me again, but nodded. Then he spoke up in a louder voice. I'm still cuffing you. For a few hours until that bounty money is approved by the federal government, you're in my custody. And you better believe I'll be keeping a close eye. Right you are, Sheriff. I allowed him to cuff and lead me back to the station. Sheriff, the sheriff's office. Then I sat patiently inside while he took Bill off the back and sent a telegram to the federal office. Before long, Cartwright came back in and waved me into his office. I was still cuffed, but I didn't see the sense in arguing with that for now. Soon as the telegram came through from the feds, I knew I was out of them. Letting him have his power play was costing me nothing and putting me in his better books. He sat down heavily on the other side of the desk and took off his hat. Out with it, McCarthy. Why'd you come back to town? I struggled to pull the note from my pocket. Eventually, my fingers closed round it, and I managed to hold it up. This. Read it and see what you think. He took the note out of my fingers and read it carefully, eyes scanning every word. I see. You said this was at Bill's camp? Yes, sir. I killed one man while hunting Bill, but at least 2 others were there and escaped, maybe more. At first, I thought they'd run off because Bill was dead, but after finding this, I have reason to believe they might try and go through with this plan even though Bill's gone. Every man wants to get paid. The sheriff looked at me thoughtfully. But why is this your problem, McCarthy? I fail to see why you'd risk coming back here knowing there's nothing in it for you. The words stuck in my throat. What was I supposed to say? He was looking for a reason to believe me, a reason to let me help him catch Hollis. But what could I give him? I'm back here because I'm in love with a Native American kid and want to make sure he ain't gonna get hurt. Somehow, I didn't think that'd fly. Before I could think of a reasonable answer, the sheriff grinned. It's just like I thought. Your face is saying it all. You know what I found when I was inspecting Bill's body? What? You didn't kill Wild Bill McCoy, did you, McCarthy? I mean, you might have been there, but it weren't you that pulled the trigger. I gulped. No, sir, it wasn't. 'Cause there weren't no trigger. Bill was killed by an arrow. Dang, I should have been more careful. I should have just, popped him in the head with some bullets, man. Why didn't I think of the autopsy? I saw the wound. I know what it means. You're working with the Native Americans. Not exactly. Just one Native American. I knew it. My voice had given it away. Sheriff's eyebrows shot through his head. Oh, so it's like that, is it? You found yourself a little flame, the object of a male's romantic interest. Why not female, too? Why not both? Well, I sure hope she's worth it, McCarthy. She is, sir. I answered without missing a beat. You didn't need to know Taza weren't no woman. If you wanted to believe I was falling for some native, then let him. It might help my case. So where's she now? She went back to the tribe. Worried about him, you see. I think that if the chief hears about this... Oh, you don't need to tell me, McCarthy. I know just what kind of man that chief is. He taken me to heck and back throughout the years, and I can't retaliate because they got special protection. But what Hollis is doing is going too far. He paused, and for a second, seeing his frustration, I thought about telling him what I'd heard. Sean Brady, the hiring, and the cover-up, the reason why the tribe had their immunity. After all, he was an important higher-up, and it weren't right that he was still in government. If I had this kind of information and sat on it, did that make me the bad guy? Seeing evil being done and doing nothing about it was one of the sins of the Bible, so I recalled from Sunday school. But my good sense soon got the better of me, and I looked at the floor and kept my mouth shut. This weren't something the sheriff needed to know, and it would have had bad consequences for Taza. It weren't my place. He dragged his hands through his hair and sighed. Shoot, McCarthy, I was just about to go home before I saw you, and now I got all this to handle. Look, it's clear to me that you have a plan, so let me hear it. If it ain't too stupid, I might even let you do it. I was thinking I could go and offer to work for Hollis. Or maybe you could send me there in some sort of official capacity, you know, keeping an eye on me and all that. There was no actual confession in the note, and he ain't done anything illegal if he weren't responsible, so I need to find something tying him to Dalton's murder. Then you can arrest him and put a stop to all this, right? Right. And you think old Hollis was born yesterday? He ain't gonna let you just look around his things, and I bet he's cleaned up all there was to find, if there was even anything to start with. I gotta do something, Sheriff. Being near Hollis after some whiskey, maybe he'll let something slip. Even if not, if there's something bad that happens, what we're thinking the chief might do, what? If I'm nearby, maybe I can help. If there's something bad that happens, what we're thinking, okay. Help who, Your countrymen? Or your lady friend? Everyone. I don't want to see no bloodshed over this. One good man's death is already more than enough. The sheriff surveyed me, then sighed and unlocked my cuffs. All right, you're a better man than I gave you credit for, McCarthy. Whoops. A more foolish one, too. It's getting dark soon, so I'll take you to Hollis's and tell him he has to let you stay and work. If you see or hear anything, you come back to me, you hear? I don't want you going vigilante. Understood, Sheriff. I liked Cartwright. Despite his uptight manner and unwelcoming attitude, he was a good man and a smart one. In another life, perhaps the two of us could have been friends. I shook out my hands, grateful to be out of the cuffs. Come on. And nothing said here leaves this office either. Of course. I'll come to you as soon as I got anything that could tie Hollis down. Get me a letter or something. I know Hollis's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere because of all the correspondence he's sent to me over the years. But this note doesn't say his name, so I'll need another sample of it from his house. So you're lying. You ain't got any of those letters left flying around? Ha! I burn them the day I get them. Hollis's requests are never reasonable. Alright. Find a letter, see what else I can get, and come back the minute I got it. So you can follow instructions when it suits you. Good to know, McCarthy. At least he was joking with me. That was a good sign. The plot, the ploy, the scheming. I walked with the sheriff to the other side of town and over towards Hollis's ranch. It had been a long day and the fatigue was starting to catch up with me. I couldn't wait to get in a nice long rest in a proper bed. The ranch was just as huge and spacious as I remembered. Hollis didn't look too pleased to see me back again. He couldn't rightly refuse, though, since he was being ordered by the sheriff. He didn't have no proper reason to say no. He did just tell us that, 3 of her men left, so... I just smiled and tried to seem as friendly as I could. It was difficult, thinking this man could be capable of cold-blooded murder and was planning to do worse. But this was for Taza's sake and his people, and I had to make it work. Eventually, the sheriff left, and Hollis grudgingly pointed me to a spare room in the back of the house. You'll be up at dawn, muck out the stables, bring in the milk and eggs, and then I'll need you to go meet my dogs. They don't trust people easy, but you gotta learn to work with them. When you can get them to follow you, come find me and I'll take you to the herds. Sounds fine to me, Mr. Dalton. Just Hollis, please. No extra pleasantries in this house, and I'll be calling you Lee. As you like it, Hollis. Good, a fast learner, I see. Now get to bed, son, you got a busy day coming up. He shut the door and left me alone. The room was small, at least compared to the rest of the house. It was also a bit musty, like the room weren't used in a long while, but right then, anything felt like heaven. It didn't take long to fall asleep. The next few days were rough working on the ranch. I wasn't the youngest of men anymore. It had been a long time since I'd done any of this kind of work, and Hollis didn't pull punches. About 3 days in, my back was sore. I'd gummed up my shoulder somehow, and I had a gash on my hand from using the saw. It was the middle of the night on my 4th day at Hollis's when something finally happened. He'd kept me so busy I hadn't had a chance to look for anything yet. Still, it was worth it to remember why I was doing this. I thought about Taza sometimes at night. I hoped he decided to stay out of this after all. I wondered if his father had even listened to him when he got back, but he didn't leave in the best circumstances after all. Then I'd remember his eyes on the day I last saw him, and I knew he'd have made him listen. That kid was headstrong as they come. Smart with it too, and with a heart of gold. I was pining, I knew it. Couldn't help it though. I'd been so lonely since Jimmy died, and Taza was the first person I felt like I could really talk to. The first one I had a connection with. Jimmy's memory was fading further away by the day, and my actions were being fueled by someone else now. I'd hoped after losing Jimmy that I'd never fall in love again. Now though, I was glad I had. Even if it was worthless, I was doing something to help someone other than myself, and I'd forgotten how good that felt. A sudden noise snapped me out of my thoughts. It sounded like someone, or something, was in the house. I wasn't sure if Hollis was going to deal with it or not, but I wanted to get up in any case. If it was a burglar, he could always use the help. I crept out of bed and headed down the corridor. It all looked quiet with everything in the right place. Who's there? Ain't no answer. Not Hollis getting up to get a glass of water then. I definitely heard something odd. I made my way into the living room and saw the source of the noise. The umbrella stand at the door had fallen clean over. Someone had definitely been here, and they left in a hurry. Could they be looking for the same evidence I was? Or maybe it was someone hired by Hollis to take it away. Caught as I was pondering this, I suddenly saw a flicker of light outside through the window. Looked like it was coming from the yard. I headed out the door and round the side of the house. Hollis? The figure at the back of the yard jumped and turned to face me. It was Hollis. What are you doing up? Get back to sleep. He was nervous, snappish. That could only mean one thing. He was up to no good and he didn't want me to see it. He couldn't even sneak out of his own house. I kept walking towards him. What are you doing in the yard in the middle of the night? I saw a light. Ain't no light out here. I was feeling a little queasy, so I came out to take a breath of air. Though I don't see why I should have to answer to some lackey on my own dang property. You're here on the sheriff's orders as a criminal under investigation. You're lucky I even let you be here, so don't push it and get back to your room. Ain't no man talks to me like that, even on his own property, Hollis. What have you got behind your back? I was right near him now. It was easy to smell the stench of alcohol in his breath. Though he was a little taller than me, he was older, and he was also drunk as all heck. He hadn't got the strength to push me away. I pulled his hand out from behind his back. Get off of me. He was holding a box of matches. Are you having a smoke, or? My eyes drifted behind him to the barn. The wooden barn that was full of hay. Hollis, have you lost your goddamn mind? You're gonna burn down your own ranch? Insurance fraud. What are you thinking? Of course not. I was just having a cigarette, that's all. He was flustered and angry, and his cigarette weren't lit. I knew what I'd seen. Hollis was trying to commit arson. They're trying to burn your property down. What for? Insurance? Or... Now you stop right there. Outsider, you don't know nothing about this town. We got problems you can't conceive of, and people are struggling. If I had just a little more space, just a little more, I could keep more cattle. You know what cattle brings? Meat, milk, leather. You don't know how much this means to the people of this town. Earl and Cartwright were collaborating to stop me, but Earl's gone and the sheriff is otherwise occupied. His eyes had taken on this manic gleam. I was a little concerned for myself. He didn't look entirely there. Luckily, it didn't seem like he'd brought a gun. Just get out of here, stranger, and never come back. He looked threatening now, bearing down on me with his height. I saw a glimpse of the man he would have been 10 years ago. You know what? You know I can't let this go, Hollis. You can threaten me all you like, but this goes deeper than just keeping my nose out. A man's died. Your brother. Hollis blanched, and for the first time, he wavered. He looked sick. I didn't have nothing to do with that. So the note I found on Wild Bill weren't nothing to do with you? I don't know what you think you found, but I didn't never do anything to Earl. Never. He's my brother, and I loved him. He was the only dang family I had in this whole town. I'm warning you, stranger. You don't know poop about me, my brother, or what's going on here. So it ain't true you were working with Bill to pin the murder of your brother on the Native Americans? And when that didn't work, because I got Bill, you sent the sheriff out of the way and what? Set fire to your ranch? You hoping to frame him for that too? What's the matter to you, McCarthy? His eyes were wide and spittle was flying from his mouth. He looked possessed. The devil's got him. Don't you see that people in this town are going hungry because them natives are using up all that good land? If they dang well share it, give us just a little, then I'd have twice as much cattle and nobody would go without. But they ain't reasonable. They're savages, and the government will hear word against them. Earl died, and I'm telling the truth. I don't know nothing about that. But since he's gone, I'm doing what I gotta do to keep the rest of us alive. They're just natives, McCarthy. It don't matter what happens to them. Don't you see what I'm doing here will come good in the end? I shook my head. I hated men like him. Men like Hollis and like the chief of the tribe who couldn't look past their own nose to see what was in front of them. You're wrong, Hollis. Let's see. I don't want to out myself. The native I met is worth 10 of yeehaws. Natives are good people, just like us. But we're not good people. Natives are good people, just like us. You're pathetic, McCarthy, defending him. You ain't got a dang clue. Anyway, it don't matter now. You can't stop me. Sheriff ain't here, and this whole place will burn down before he gets here. They'll arrive by then. I know they're coming, and they'll get their just desserts. He pulled out a match and made to strike it before I could move. A voice from the shadows suddenly spooked me. Hollis jumped as well, match still poised against the box. He can't stop you. I can. Move a finger and you're dead, American. Taza stepped out from behind the water tower at the far end of the yard while the fear got to Hollis, making him fall to his knees. Behind him was his father and a number of Native Americans, all with their weapons ready to attack. Taza, what are you doing? I told you I'd handle it, so leave. You'll get in trouble for being here. Taza looked at me coolly. There weren't no trace of the warmth that had been in his eyes in the farmhouse. I wondered what they'd said or done to him. Then I felt the urge to hurt every last one of them that hurt him, so I stopped thinking about it. And I told you to leave and not come back. Looks like neither of us followed our instructions. Please, tell your people to go. The chief shouted something in his own language. He didn't sound happy. He says I can't trust you. He says you're working for Hollis. Taza moved closer and I could tell he was tense. His tone was almost pleaded. I'm the next leader of this tribe and I have to do what's right by my people. Nope. Taza raised his bow and aimed it at Hollis, who was cringing in fear, all bravado forgotten. I saw Taza's arm shaking, and I knew this wasn't his choice. I'd made him kill Bill when I wasn't strong enough. I'd be danged if I let him do it again. Not this time. Oh, I stood between Taza and Hollis and looked him dead in the face. What are you doing? Move. I have to do this. I have to prove myself. Nope, I can't let you do this, Taza. You want him to live? After what he's done? Taza's eyes hardened to stone. I felt my heart breaking as I tried to get him to understand. He was losing himself. It's true. You're just like the rest. I care about you, and I ain't gonna let you do something stupid. Who are you to decide that for me? Get out of the way. I can't let you shoot an American. They'll string you up. Let the sheriff handle it. It's his job, not yours. I can't let you shoot an American. Taza out here like, let me do all the stupid things I want. That was so true. You wouldn't understand, Lee. Let me do this. I have to. I can't let you shoot an American. They'll string you up. Don't you understand? There's laws, and he'll pay for what he's done, but you ain't his judge, jury, and executioner, and there's laws against that too. I'm not gonna watch you get hemmed for the sake of this swine. For a tiny second, I thought he lowered his bow. Dude, he should shoot us. Then the chief shouted again, and he grit his teeth. Please, Lee, get out of the way. You don't understand what he's like. I have to do this, even if I have to shoot you too. Go ahead, shoot us. Then do it. If you're gonna prove your loyalty, do it. But I'm not gonna stand aside. Look at Hollis cowering in the back. Standing firm, I held my arms out to the side, showing I was unarmed and defenseless. If he wanted this bad enough, he'd do it. For a long moment, we faced each other, Taza with his bow drawn. I didn't know if he was going to shoot me, but I wasn't scared. Worst case, I got to join Jimmy, and that wouldn't be so bad. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes. I raised an eyebrow. What's gonna be, kid? Stop right there! The sheriff's voice was loud as thunder. All the tribesmen jumped, and Taza's eyes flicked past me to where it come from. Weapons down and hands where I can see them. I am a representative of the law. Taza dropped his bow and didn't meet my eyes. The rest of the tribe seemed uneasy and looked to the chief, who narrowed his eyes in dislike, but he made a gesture and they all lowered their weapons. He jogged into view, sweaty and irritable. What in the dang heck is going on here? He focused on me as soon as he saw me there. Sweaty and irritable is such a mood, right? Sheriff might be my fave. McCarthy, talk. Hollis was trying to frame these natives for arson, Sheriff. He's got a box of matches and was going to set fire to the barn. I caught him, then the tribe turned up. They weren't complicit in any of this. Then why'd that boy have his arrow on you? Did you just step on some toes when you went with that girl? I winced internally and could only hope Taza weren't following Cartwright's train of thought. I wouldn't want him to think I was in cahoots with another native and had only faked all ignorance of his tribe when I'd gone with him. He was upset because of Hollis's actions, but I stopped him doing anything rash. They were helping me keep him here and waiting for you to show up. Cartwright looked at me, down at the sobbing Hollis, and back up at Taza and the rest. The chief was looking thunderous. Sounds like a ton of baloney to me. Nobody's dead though, so I don't rightly care. All this political nonsense is too much for me, and I'm tired already, so I'm not asking questions. You'd tell them to go back where they came from, and we won't press no charges for trespassing. Will do, Sheriff. Taza still didn't react. I wondered what he was thinking, but I didn't dare look too close when Cartwright was right there. What about him? I pointed to Hollis. His drunkenness had caught up to him, and he was almost unconscious now. I'll take Hollis. You'll be interrogated tomorrow, and we'll see if we can dig out a confession. Being honest, Sheriff, it doesn't sound like he was behind the murder. He got real frantic at the mention of his brother. Maybe he had some other useful information then, or maybe you just ain't good at spotting a liar. Either way, I'll find out for sure, but tonight's farce is more than enough to have him hung, whether he's killed Earl or not. You've done good work, McCarthy. Thank you, Sheriff. Grunting an effort, I helped get Hollis to his feet while Taza went back to his father with a final lingering glance at me. I could hear him talking, but I couldn't understand nothing. I hoped I hadn't raised any sand for him. I just couldn't let him do it. The sheriff cuffed Hollis and made to leave, then turned back. You know, McCarthy, you've been a dang good help. Don't suppose you'd want to take a job with me, would you? I could use someone like you to help me out. I looked over at the tribe. Taza was talking with his father. Hello. If I stayed at Golders Rock, I'd likely not see him again. There was too much bad blood. Then again, without Bill, what did I have left to chase out in the wide world? Perhaps it was a good time to settle down with a steady gig. I want to work for the sheriff. I want to work for the sheriff. What am I gonna do if I say no? Just chase Taza forever? Like, come on. Sure, that sounds like a mighty fine idea, Sheriff. No. Yes. No. Yeah. Yeah. Let me think. McCarthy. What would McCarthy do at this point in time? Maybe he'll say no. I, as the player, want to work with the sheriff. That sounds like a mighty fine idea, Sheriff. I left with the sheriff. It was clear to me now that Taza's place was with this tribe and mine with my own people. No, we're seriously... It was better that way. No, wait. I take it back. I take it back. We're not going to see Taza again. Next day, I was handed a shiny new badge. It was nice working in town for once, knowing I'd be going home every night. The drifter's life had worked for me, but it was a means to an end. I'd settled the score with Bill, and Jimmy was resting peacefully. And I knew I could still feel something for someone. Though I never saw Taza again, I was glad I met him. No! He brought me back from an edge I didn't even know I was on. Now my life was peaceful, and I'm happy. I spent my days helping Cartwright and my nights drinking with Jed. One day, maybe I'll find someone I can share more than that with. Oh, did we get a neutral ending? But I ain't rushing. It'd have to be someone pretty dang special after all. The end! We got the neutral ending! Taza or bust. We busted. That's okay, at least it was quick. Then we can just go back and get Taza. Squaffle. That's a funny name. Leibowitz. Sound FX. But we didn't even solve the mystery of who killed the mayor. When we go with it, we work with the sheriff for nothing. We're just nothing. Gay cowboy enthusiast Jed's cheeks. That's hilarious. And me? Watashi? All right, we gotta go back to Taza. Got the neutral route. Got the neutral end. I mean. Yeehaw, brother. I'm a sheriff. I'm the deputy of this town. Thanks for playing. Hold on. We gotta say no. We gotta go get Taza. Thank you, Sheriff, but no thank you. Cartwright shrugged. Have it your way then. Thanks again for your help. I'll buy you a drink sometime if you're ever in Dead Man's Rest. I'd like that. The sheriff left and I turned back to Taza. He was sitting alone on a rock at the edge of the ranch. The rest of his tribe had melted away into the shadows. Slowly I walked up to him and sat down beside him. Hey, you okay? He didn't look at me. His voice was low and shaking with pain. Not really. I almost killed you today. You should've. For what? My father's revenge? I don't know who I am anymore. You weren't ever gonna shoot me. I knew that. I believed in you. You said you care about me. Do you know you're the first person to ever say that? I've spent my whole life trying to be who my father told me to be, and I can't. I've been disinherited, kicked out of the tribe. My cousin will be the next chief. Now I'm just nobody. Nothing. You're Taza. Ain't that enough? I wanted to change the tribe, change the way they think. They haven't learned nothing from this. My father went home thinking about the unfairness of American laws, angry that he couldn't get his revenge. Angry that his son is weak and naive because he cavorts with the white man. He was real upset. Put a hand on his shoulder, wishing I could do more to comfort him. Look, Taza, no man is perfect. Oh, God. No man is perfect. Some men can't see what's in front of them because they want to keep believing themselves. You shouldn't do what you think is right. You should do what you think is right and don't listen to anyone telling you otherwise. What was the context? Some men can't see what's in front of them because they want to keep believing themselves. It's hard to say what you thought your whole life. Wait, it's hard to say that what you thought your whole life ain't right. For some men, it's easier to keep being wrong. Call it stubbornness or pride or stupidity. Be grateful you ain't like that, but you can't change men who are. I know that now. You're the only one who's always said it like it is. Taza looked up at the horizon where the sun was just beginning to rise. Thank you for everything, Lee. I can't describe how much of a friend you've been to me. It's only been a short time, but I'll never forget the lessons you've helped me learn. Hasn't it only been like 2 days or 3 days? I need to go home. I'll try to get back. My sentence was only so severe because it was made in a fit of anger. It might be hard to convince my father to accept me into the tribe again, but I can do it. I'll change their minds. Though I was happy to hear purpose in his voice again, my heart twinged. Him going back meant I weren't never gonna see him again. I tried to keep the hoarseness out of my voice. Sure, you do what you gotta do, Taza. Best of luck with it. I held out my hand. He shook it with a warm smile. I made sure to etch that smile onto my brain and remember it forever. Good luck to you too, Lee, wherever you go. With that, he nodded to me and set off with determination. I watched his figure disappear into the rising sun. Not like this! It was sad to watch him go, but it was also bittersweet. He was gonna change this corner of the world, I was sure of that. Maybe I'd come back, see how things were doing in a few years. With that thought in my mind, I headed back into the ranch to grab my gear. Ain't no sense staying here any longer. I'd done what I came to do. Back to the drifter's life for me. I'd find another target, and my life would go on as before. Sooner or later, I'd be able to forget how much my heart hurt. I hoisted my bag, adjusted my hat, and with a last look back at the town, I headed off into the empty horizon. Stop! I prefer the sheriff's ending over this. Don't worry, we still got other paths to choose from that I didn't click on. Okay, what's the one before this? Okay, let me... What's this? You should listen to what you think is right and don't listen to anyone tell you otherwise. Except when it's you telling me not to kill Hollis, right? Now that ain't the same. That weren't right no matter how you look at it. I was stopping you from making the worst mistake of your life. I know that now. You're the only one who's always said it like it is. Okay, is this the same ending? Thank you for everything, Lee. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Is this the same ending? It might be the same ending. Best of luck with it. I held out my hand. He shook it with a warm smile. Yep, etch the smile into your brain. Uh-huh. Same ending. Same ending. Okay, what's this? Ooh, no, don't save. Load. Yes. It's probably all gonna be the same. Let the sheriff handle it. It's his job, not yours. He'll probably be mad. We'll probably get the bad ending. It's our fight. He's done us wrong. I shook my head and stood facing down his bow. No way I was gonna let him do it. Please, Lee, get out of the way. You don't understand what he's like. I have to do this, even if I have to shoot you too. Then do it. Shoot me. Shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. It's probably the same. Skip. Okay, yeah, this is all gonna be the same, I think. Yeah, okay. Load. This one. The native I met is worth 10 of yeehaw list. Consorting with them, eh? I took you for a better man than you are, McCarthy. Anyway, it don't matter now. You can't stop me. Sheriff ain't here, and this whole place will burn down before he gets here. They'll arrive by then. I know they're coming, and they'll get their just desserts. Okay, is this gonna be the same as well? Oh wait, but did he hear what we said? The yeehaw music. This is all the same. Okay, load. It's probably here's the big change. Why does anyone have to be hurt, Taza? Let me handle this. Trust me. I trust you, but I can't stand by and do nothing. Take my advice or don't, regardless of time when I know I have to. Okay, maybe it's all the same. Was that the good ending? Hold on, the options, text skipping is seen text. So, skip. Okay, yeah, it's all the same. Okay, load. Lordy, 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 lord. Killing someone in circumstances is in the right thing to do. You know, there was no other way back there. It doesn't change who you are, Taza, so don't let it affect how you think of yourself. We didn't talk much longer after that, both too exhausted from everything that had happened. Fell asleep thinking about the haunting piano music from so many years ago. Was that? Taza wasn't there. It's all the same. Then is the bad end the sheriff ending? I don't rightly know. He's probably moved on by now. Got a wife, got another wife, another kid. I ain't telling you this so you'll feel sorry for me, mind. Is there an option to skip to the next choice? This is my only thing with visual novels. Is trying to replay all the roots or like get all the endings. It'd be perfect if there was a skip to next choice option if we saw all this. Rather be out there in the desert in any case. I know what you mean. There's so much out there to be explored. I'd hate to stay in one place forever. I fully agree. Maybe what I choose from the start of his route will change the ending. Maybe? Yeehaw, buddy, we're skipping. No, it's probably all gonna be the same. Right? Whatever. Don't blame yourself, kid. I knew what I was getting into. He looked up at me, and his eyes were filled with doubt. Am I doing the right thing? There's something only you can answer. Taza, is it right to betray your people? Or should you let an innocent man die? End of the day, it's down to a man and his conscience, and you choose your way. Don't doubt it now. What's done is done. Bowed his head again and asked me something all quiet. Can I come with you? don't think I'm doing this right. Just undo what you've done to Taza. He ain't at fault here, just trying to do what's best. The chief looked surprised I knew his boy's name. Then he recovered and got as mad as a hornet. How dare you use his name so familiarly? You will be punished appropriately for bringing the enemy into our heartland. And you'll be put to death. Neither of you nor your government can argue otherwise. I have the law on my side. This man clearly weren't reasonable. Okay, what if I start here and choose all the really positive Taza options? I bet we're gonna get the same ending. Thanks for saving me. That took guts. We're sliding. Skip. Jedediah. Sure. Desert, I guess. I don't know. Skip. Ain't never thought about in a long time. Skip. Bill McCoy. Thanks. You saved my life. Think about that instead. It's gonna be the same ending. It's gonna be the only Taza ending. My name's Sheriff John Cartwright. I'm the sheriff. So would we be the bad guys if we worked for Hollis in the beginning? I wonder. Or would we just uncover more deeper lore? Oops. It's the same ending. It's the same ending, isn't it? It's the same. Oh, different ending! Yay! Wait, hold on. What did I say? I don't know what I said. That weren't right. No matter how you look at it, I suppose I was stopping you from making the worst mistake of your life. I know that now. You're the only one who said it like it is. Taza turned to me and I saw something shining in his eyes. I think he was very close. He was very close. Lee. I've never heard my name whispered like that before. Oh! Before I could understand what was happening. Is he right in front of his chief, like his dad? He kissed me. God dang, I haven't felt anything like it in years. Yeehaw! It was explosive, and I was in seventh heaven. A rush of old, forgotten instincts and feelings came flooding back. Eye-lip eye. I weren't sure if this was really what he wanted, or what was good for him, or me. But I kissed him back hard because, heck, I wanted it. I wanted him. I loved him. Oh, he was excited, eager, and I drew him further in. My hand found his face running over his smooth chin, and I felt his arms close around my back. Isn't the sheriff there? Isn't everyone still here? His hands were pressing hard through my shirt, feeling all my scars, and that was causing all sorts of tightness down below. I pulled back, afraid I'd do something I regret. It's been a long time, and if I didn't stop right then, I was pretty sure I'd not be able to hold back. Taza looked out of breath, and I sure couldn't believe what just happened. What? I think I love you, Lee. I tried to calm myself down. He couldn't mean that. The boy didn't know what he was talking about. Now just hold on a dang minute. You're too young to be in love. Especially with, well, someone like me. Where'd that even come from? He was looking right into my eyes the whole time. My heart constricted, and I felt the thudding all the way to my ears. You're the only one who understands me, Lee. From the beginning, you've told me everything the way I needed to hear it. You always know what to do, what I want, without me even telling you. And you risked your life for me. I'll ask you, how could I not fall in love with you? But I'm a man, and you're a man too. I was running out of excuses, that was for sure. Anything I could have thought of was gone, somewhere in those eyes of his, and drowned out by the memory of his soft lips. I wanted to believe him, but I knew it couldn't be right. That hasn't stopped you in the past. I just want you, Lee. I don't care that we're both men. Now see, there's a fine line between admiration and love, Taza. I was sweating. I was scared. Both ways this conversation could go were terrifying me. You know, you're kissing me like that. It felt incredible, but you might not be so sure when it comes to, well, other stuff, and I know I'm younger than you. That doesn't mean I don't know how I feel. I want you in every way, Lee. Please, tell me you feel the same. That I'm not just a stupid kid reading the wrong signals. His eyes, for the first time, were full of doubt. I couldn't believe I'd put that expression there. Bugger it all, I couldn't hold back anymore. Bugger it all. If it was what he wanted, I'd give it to him. I'd give him anything. Ha, yeehaw. I leaned in and kissed him again, more gently this time. He surprised me, grabbing my arms forcefully and turning us around and pushing me back against the tray. Okay. His body covered mine instantly. His musky scent surrounded me, and my mind fogged over. By gum, he knew how to turn me on. I went in, grabbing at his sides, pushing up against him. He looked thin as a twig, but underneath was pure muscle. He ran his tongue over and bit my bottom lip with a ferocity I did not know he had in him. Hoo-wee! Once again, I felt it get into me, and I had to struggle to pull away. McCarthy, you'd be like, hoo-wee! You have no idea how much I want to keep doing this, but we gotta stop, brother. I'm feeling the pressure down there. You're not the only one. He grinned all mischievous and wiggled. No! I could feel exactly what he meant. Dang this kid. Is everyone else still here? That's what I'm wondering. I'm assuming they all left. Hopefully they all left. Seemed like I got a little spitfire on my hands. I had to cool it off though, just for now. I need to make sure one last time that he really understood. Clear my throat, I pulled back slightly. Make no mistake, Taza, I'm in love with you. That's why I'm so scared. See, I don't want this to be something you regret. No matter what happens, I'll never regret it. That I can promise you. What you've taught me about myself is irreplaceable. Not to mention, that was my first real kiss. I want to be with you for as long as you'll let me. You weren't even old enough to order a drink, but somehow he's completely stolen me. What the heck was I doing? An old man like me were no good for him. He'd probably be done with me and find a nice girl in a few years. But as I looked at him, that eager expression and the shining adoration in his eyes, heck, I was gonna enjoy those few years while I could and dang well make them last. Yeehaw. I pulled him back in and claimed his mouth as mine. That gets a little longer with the sun rising behind us over the land. It never got to that heated place we'd been in before, but it was different in a good way. Closer somehow. There's the sunset. There's the picture that's in the not ideal ending. I guess that was the bad ending for Taza. As soon as I saw the sunlight flooding over us, I pulled back and grinned at him. Well then, where do you want to go now? I can't go back to the tribe, much less with you. They won't have us. I could stay in town, maybe. We could see each other from time to time. He shook his head with fervor. I'm not ashamed of you. I don't want us to have to live in fear or hide away. I want to be together, happy. Ain't no town in America where that'll happen. Then let's not go to a town. There's a whole wide land out there waiting to be explored. We'll get horses and be bounty hunters or cowboys or rangers, anything you want. I'll get to see the world like I always dreamed, with you by my side. It was getting carried away, but dang if I didn't want it too. What was stopping us, really? I had nothing tie me down, and neither did he. I grinned at his excited face. Yeah, let's do it. If you're sure you want to be out in the desert with an old man, you're not that old yet. Alright, you're gonna pay for that one, boy. He danced out of my grip, jumping away from me. Oops. I growled and chased him, and his laugh was the best thing I'd heard in a long time. He was just about to shoot us. This mood shift is a little intense. I didn't care how it happened. I didn't care that we had no money and no real plans. We could go anywhere, and as long as it was the two of us, we'd do all right. For the first time in years, I felt happy. I was free. The end. We got. Now that was the good ending for sure. Yeah, good for Lee. New purpose in his life. Thanks for playing. Yay. Okay. Okay, we'll call it here then with Taza's route. I could not keep up with this accent for this whole time. I was slipping, but my god. By gum if it wasn't fun. Thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see if we continue more of this next week or if I feel like playing something else. Otsu, pardner. Alright, y'all have a good day now. I tip my hat to you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Can I get one last yeehaw? Yeehaw!